Hello everybody, welcome into our latest live broadcast. Today is the 11th of January 2025. It's Saturday. My name is CareyHolzman and thank you guys so much for joining us. I think I need to raise this table up a little bit. It's feeling a little low. Bring that up. That's a little better. All right, thought I got taller. Darn it. Welcome in everybody. Today we're going to do a laptop battery replacement and just an overall inspection with regards to any dust debris buildup, and explain and demonstrate, for example, why, well, let's face it, there's just a ton of misinformation online, and it's essentially like the supplement business in healthcare. People like Alex Jones were known for selling supplements to people that did nothing for extraordinary amounts of money. It's a modern day snake oil. And in the PC business, there's a ton of that. There's a hard disk repair and file and deletion and VPNs and thermal paste replacement, all is a complete waste of your time. As a professional in this business for over 30 years, never once has a thermal paste replacement ever made a difference of more than 3 degrees anyway, completely negating the amount of time and effort it takes to do it. Thermal paste, when you put it on your computer, it's good for life. If you want to replace it, go ahead. If you want to take those supplements, be my guest. It's not illegal. You want to run a registry cleaner and just waste your time? Knock yourself out. We don't get paid to do that here in this business. We've never run in a corporate environment. And I want you to know that, in my opinion, as a professional in this industry, you are wasting your money on a ton of unnecessary things. If you're using system tune-up utilities, hard drive recovery software, gosh, there's so many other things. I don't even know where to start. If you believe solid-state drives are not reliable or not recoverable, if you are disconnected from the industry as a consumer and you're just reading things online, you are being sold a ton of stuff that absolutely does nothing for you. It's all a placebo. Multiple fans, you don't need more than about 2 or 3 fans on a computer at most, unless you're looking for a certain aesthetic value. Oftentimes, when you see somebody open up an older laptop like this one, it'll be crammed up with well, as Salem Texperts likes to say, gooch. It's going to have lint and hair and fibrous objects blocking the heat sinks. And so this is what you're going to see over and over again on YouTube. You're going to see somebody open a laptop, clear those heat sinks out, and then while they're in there, they're going to change the thermal compound. Then they put it all together and they say, wow, look how much cooler it's running. I'm here to tell you that changing the thermal compound had little to nothing to do with how much cooler it's running. They could have saved time, they could have saved effort, they could have saved money by simply removing the blockages from the heatsink and then turned it on and run the cooling test. And if they did that, you would see for yourself that the thermal compound absolutely made very little difference, if any at all. Sometimes they can make it worse. Sometimes modern machines are built using liquid metal contact material, which really needs to be applied by a machine. It has a very precision, important, what's the word? It's got to be a very precise application for it to work correctly, which pretty much a human being can't do. It oxidizes also over time, where regular thermal paste doesn't, and they charge a lot of money, just like supplements. The PC industry has that, and it's wild and rampant here online. Now look, if this stuff actually made a difference in the real world, I'd be here promoting it. But I'm telling you, most of this stuff causes more harm than any good. A lot of people go to change the thermal compound and they break something in the process. Just read the Reddit forums on PC repair and find how many people have taken a perfectly good working computer that perhaps needed a good dusting and instead caused some damage because they made a mistake, and now they have what was once a working but running warm computer to not a working computer, and now they're freaking out. Maybe they don't have any money and they were trying to save money and it just cost them more money because they wouldn't leave it alone. So the bottom line here is understand the risks you're taking and what you're buying. Do your research, because I think a lot of times it's really all about separating you from your money. They don't really care if they're lying to you or exaggerating what the product does, just like the supplement industry in healthcare. Now, you as an individual, you may find a certain supplement really works well for you. Okay, we'll continue to buy that. But I can tell you, if you actually run these tests yourself, if you have a laptop and you simply clear all the debris and dust away from the fans and the heat sinks, and then run your heat test again, you will find a massive improvement in cooling and fan noise. But then if you replace the thermal compound and then check it again, you may see 0 difference, if not 1 to 2 degrees difference. And that is also the margin of error for the temperature of the room that's constantly in change throughout the day as you're performing your test, therefore negating any results back to 0. Now, I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm telling you, if I were you, if you were my client, I would not be doing any of these things to your computer. I will not be changing your thermal compound unless I'm changing a CPU or a heatsink, because at that point we need to clean off the old and apply the new. Otherwise, I'm not even taking it off and looking at it. 2, I'm not selling you registry cleaners. I'm not selling you hard drive data recovery software or things like SpinRite, because they're all placebo products as far as I am concerned. They've never once been demonstrated to actually function and make any difference in any YouTube video ever made. It's never happened. It's all based on conjecture and gossip. There is no absolute proof. Nobody's made a video. I wonder why. Must be pretty rare to be able to find that making a positive difference, that you could catch it in a video. What's your theory? I don't know what else to tell you. You should always have backups. My clients, they have backups for everything. We have backup modems. We have backup network switches. We have, if they have VoIP, we have backup phones. We don't have a lot of them. We just need 1 or 2. Most cars, well, many cars, have a backup tire. It's called a spare. And then this way, I can get in and out of my clients' offices on average in under 1 hour. Whatever the client's problem is, I can get in there, say they've got a bad network switch. We grab a network switch that the client already has, that they were able to buy at a really good price without any stress and not worry about when it's coming in, stick it in the parts area in a cabinet. And if we need it, we grab it, unbox it for the very first time, hook it up. We take the old switch back. I will perform an RMA if the old switch is under warranty, and when the RMA is returned to us, I will return it back to the customer. That's all part of the service. It goes back in the spare parts closet. If the switch is out of warranty, then I advise the client what new switch to buy, and when it arrives, I instruct them to put it in the parts closet. We don't wait until we have a problem to decide how to solve it. All of the problems we could possibly have are already solved. If there's an earthquake or a fire or a theft or a flood, if a pissed off employee deletes all their data, we have current backups. We don't have current backups because, oh, we're going to do Windows updates. We don't have current backups because, oh, I see something coming. You will never, ever see it coming. Never. Never happen. Everything that you foresee happening is likely never going to happen. When you lose data, when this happens, when a failure occurs, it will likely blindside you. It'll happen at the worst possible time. The question is, are you prepared for anything, at any time, for any reason? That's the business I'm in. And for that reason, we have spare machines. If a customer's computer were to go down, doesn't matter if it's a mini PC or a desktop, doesn't matter. If one of the employees' machines has a problem, we simply move the employee to a different desk, or we have a spare computer, depending on the size of the business, at least one, that we can temporarily place into the client's office. All the client's data is on the server. That's where they're supposed to be putting it. So if they didn't put it there, it's not my fault. The server is the only thing that gets backed up. We do not back up the individual machines. All the individual machines have all the same software already installed, all ready to go, so that the person and the machine are not tied together in any way. You could literally sit anywhere in this office and get to work, although your desk with your pictures and your arrangement of things may be comfortable for that employee. The bottom line is they're not paid to be comfortable, they're paid to get work done. And if something were to happen, they can take a day to go work in another office, or they can go grab a machine and plug it in to their desk if they don't want to leave their office. And then I will come in after business hours when there's no traffic and I'm not interrupting the employees, and I will pick up the bad machine. I will bring it back here and work on it. And when that machine is fixed and ready to be returned, it will go back to the client's office and the spare will go back into the closet. This is all very simple stuff. This is incredibly simple. It's relatively stress-free, and I'm very confidence inspiring to my customers to be able to get in and out quickly, and I'm done. I mean, I'm totally done. Once that machine is fixed, I do not, with rare exception, ever have to come back to refine that repair. It's done. So it's a pretty overly simple process that the consumers are being convinced is more complicated than it really is, as an excuse for people to separate you from your money. And if you feel good about it, congratulations, they love you. You bought it hook, line, and sinker. Oh, I'm so glad I got that system tune-up utility. My system runs so much faster. You could have made that system run faster very simply without spending a dime. Oh, I got this software to back up my drivers for me. You don't need any software to back up your drivers for you. It is just absolutely insane how much money the consumer spends based on a lack of education, and it's costing consumers billions of dollars a year to the profit of companies who know exactly what they're selling you. Now, if you want to continue that behavior, far be it from me to tell you not to. You make your own choices, but I have no dog in the race here. What I'm trying to tell you is, when you're buying these utilities, from my experience of a professional in 30 years of this industry, I've never needed those utilities, and they usually cause more problems than any good, whether they're free or not. Keep them off your system if you want a system to be reliable. And if you're having problems with the system underperforming, there are simple ways for you to check. And if it's still not underperforming, the answer is to upgrade your storage or your RAM, or simply replace the machine if you're expecting it to run faster than it's capable of running, right? I mean, there's no software in the world that will do that. It's like selling you a pill that's going to build you muscles. Just take this pill and you don't have to exercise. That's what everybody's looking for, and it doesn't exist. If you don't do the work, you're not going to get the results. And you can take those pills all day long, and you can spend all the money and follow the regimen of, take it twice a day with a meal or whatever it is. And if you see any results, that's purely coincidental. But hey, maybe it's imaginary too. If you're happy spending your money on nonsense that doesn't actually do anything, I just want you to know you're wasting your money. But if it makes you feel good, I don't want to get in the way. I don't want to make you feel bad. I want you to just get to this self-awareness and realization of critical thinking of before and after verification testing, that everything I'm telling you is true, and you can be using that money you're saving to actually spend it on something that really helps you in real life. So with that, we're not going to be changing the thermal compound on this because it's a complete and utter waste of time. It's dangerous because if you've never done it before and you're not a professional, you can easily break what's in there, and it likely is not going to make any difference measurable by more than 2 or 3 degrees at the best. And in some cases, if you don't do it right, you actually make it worse. But cleaning out the debris and the clutter from the heat sinks and the fans, it's easily done by anybody because it doesn't require any parts removal. You might need to get some tweezers or something to pull the lint out of it. And I promise you, once you do that and you turn the laptop back on, it'll be quiet again and it'll be cool again. Don't overthink it. Don't overcomplicate it. It's really just that simple. And I'm going to prove that today. This laptop is from 2015. Now, a computer that's 10 years old has genuinely lived its life, with one exception. If you buy one of the best computers on the market today, so you drop $3,000 on a laptop today, you should fully expect that laptop to be fully usable 10 years from now. Absolutely. If you buy a $300 laptop today, it's not worth your time or effort, and it's unrealistic to expect to have that computer running acceptably well in 10 years because programs become more resource intensive. Antivirus and Windows itself, with all the updates that constantly come in, it needs more and more resources to run. So the machine starts to get weighed down. It's like having the cheapest car you can buy, and you're just loading the trunk up with bricks every day. And you're never taking any bricks out. And suddenly the car has no acceleration and it's hard to stop and the gas mileage isn't any good. Technically, the car still runs as good as the day you bought it. The problem is it's no longer capable to meet your needs of today. If you got to always carry that load of bricks everywhere you go, that's not the appropriate vehicle for you anymore. Now, if you had bought a vehicle that was more designed for that task right out of the gate, it would have cost you a lot more money. But it would also likely still be worth fixing today, right? If anything were to go wrong with it. And so all computers are not the same. What you pay for the computer will establish how many years of use you will get out of that computer. In general, the statistic I like to use is for every $100 you spend, you should be able to get 1 year out of that computer. So a $300 computer should be good for at least 3 years, minimum. If you spend $1,000 on a computer, that's a 10-year computer. This is not including any cost of a graphics card. So if you put a $2,000 graphics card into a $1,000 computer, it's still a 10-year computer. It's not a $3,000 computer, it's a $1,000 computer with a $2,000 GPU. Understand? The value of the computer will determine approximately how much life you can expect, useful life, to get out of that device, statistically in general. That is the rule. So if you want to buy something cheap today, just expect you're going to need to replace it in the number of years according to the value of the machine that you paid. As long as you're okay with that, make your purchase. If you want to buy something that's 3 times more, you go from a $300 computer to a $900 computer, you can reasonably expect that computer to last you 9 years, provided you don't spill anything on it, you don't mistreat it, you don't take it apart, changing thermal paste. When you do that, all bets are off, because now you are the chaos in the statistic that's resulting in some people succeeding and some people failing, and it's creating a chaotic variable that cannot be controlled other than by the user's own self-control. So in business, end users don't open their machines. In business, in corporate America, even in small businesses, end users do not open their machines. If you have IT service, you let IT service take care of it. And these statistics hold true 100% of the time. There's very few exceptions to this rule, provided you have a capable IT person. Again, after more than 3 decades in this industry, I don't need to hear anybody else's word for it. I have figured out what works and what doesn't work, and I've taken that 30+ years and I've condensed it down in the most simplest form to benefit you. Now, if you don't want to accept that, you don't have to. There's nothing in it for me either way, but I want you to know, as a professional computer technician, I would be losing my shirt and be out of business if all the stuff you read online were true. But boy, does it sell a lot of unnecessary products to people that don't know any better and honestly believe they're doing a right thing. I understand your intention is good, but you're causing more harm to your machine by doing it. Overall and in general, stay away from registry cleaners. This is not 1997 anymore. I will keep repeating that the way we used to do things doesn't apply to computers today overall. Computers are far less expensive, they're far more reliable, and the issues that we used to have with defragmentation and all that other stuff, it's all gone. It's all different now. So just bear that in mind and then choose accordingly which path you want to take and accept your consequences. But at least you can't say you weren't told. So with that, I have never opened one of these machines. This is an Alienware 17R3, I think is what it's called. Again, this was like a $3,000 laptop. Now this is Mara's personal laptop, and she would use this 10 years ago, LAN party gaming, right? Super easy to just grab this and go, and you can do gaming with friends. You don't see much of that anymore with everything being online. We don't do everything the way we used to even 10 years ago. LAN parties are pretty rare today because it's just all over the internet now. Even though there was internet 10 years ago, it wasn't fast enough, or not everybody had that capability where it was an equal playing field. Somebody might have a slower speed and a higher lag. So when you went to somebody's home or a place that you would all gather, you had all the lag removed, and any sort of benefit from a higher speed internet connection, which made the playing field unfair to individual players. So the only way to make it fair was to go in person. That is not the case anymore. This is just an example of how quickly things change in simply 10 years. I've been in the business 3 times longer than that, more than 3 times longer, and you can imagine things have changed 3 times more. So I appreciate when people say, well, this is how I was taught. I agree. I agree with you. That was how you were taught. And when you were taught that, that was correct. It is no longer correct today. All right. Now, let me say hello to everybody in the chat. Had to get that off my chest. I'm going to make a series of videos about all of the scams online, from VPNs that you don't need to power supply testers that are a complete waste of money in my experience. Programs like SpinRite that just suck your wallet dry and do nothing. In my opinion, I've never seen proof otherwise. It's all theoretical nonsense. Data that mysteriously vanishes off hard drives or SSDs has never ever been proven. It's only a false conclusion that's come up by people who just go, well, the data used to be there, now it's not there anymore. So therefore, without evidence and without professional forensics from anybody who actually understands how hard drives work, they conclude the data mysteriously vanished because that's the cost of a lack of education. I like to give the example of a car race. When you're watching a professional car race, the car that wins always has stickers on it. So using the uneducated understanding of just looking at something and going, well, that's obviously, the stickers make the car go faster, because you'll never see a car in a professional race come in first place if it doesn't have stickers on it. This should be laugh out loud funny, but because so many people use this kind of logic for things they don't understand, they hold on to it as though it were as true as the hand in front of my face. But they have no academic understanding of how the technology works and how preposterous their claims are. This is a real issue in the world today. And while we can't change the behaviors of others, we can certainly be self-aware of what we choose to believe as we look for evidence of any claims that are made regarding what software claims it can do, if that's worth the cost, assuming they're not telling a lie to sell you a product, they would never do that, that you actually run that software, is it worth the benefit for what you paid? That's up to you to decide, as we each have our own values. So I'm always trying to give my customers great value, and I always want my customers to never need me. That's my goal. You should never ever need me. But if you do, I'm going to be in and out in general in under an hour, because we're prepared for anything if I am a managed service provider. If you're somebody who's never called me before, we have a lot of getting to know each other before I can even do anything. I have to understand who you are, what you have, how long you've had it, what the problem is, when the problem started, and then I need you to demonstrate the problem. When I work with customers as a managed service provider, I get to know them very well, and they get to know me very well. And then we work together like two gears, just in perfect synchronization. And the whole thing is so smooth. It saves the customer so much money, so little downtime. I don't know why anybody would do this any differently. But in the meantime, hope you're enjoying your Saturday today as we're doing a live show to catch up on some work I've got waiting since we got back from our little gallivanting around California. And hello to Eddie Casanova, Luke Greenia, Robert Halter, and Jonathan joining us, and say hello. There's David Graham with a $2 super chat. Our friend Buster joining us from Scotland, renews membership, now a member for 32 months. And Buster says, hello, Carey and Mara and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland. The temperature in Edinburgh today, 31 degrees Fahrenheit, which is half a degree Celsius, 0.5. Whew, that sounds cold. Peter Laycock, that's Buster, contributes 10 pounds in super chat as well. Thank you, Buster. Our friend William Denton and Charlie Purdy join us. Charlie with a $20 super chat. Ah, very nice. Thank you, Charlie. He says, hello, Carey, Mara, and everyone in the chat. Hey, Charlie. Scott says, hello. There's 3D Everything renewing membership now for 32 months in a row. Look at that. I love that. That is so flattering that you guys have been members for so long. Thank you so, so much. 3D Everything says, again, another month went by. Yeah, they kind of made a big deal on it on the 1st. Time flies, doesn't it? All right, let's see. Mark Gaines with a 20-pound super chat. Mark joins us from Northern Ireland. He says, hello, Carey, Mara, and everyone in the chat. Cheers, Mark. Good to see you, my friend. Wait, I got to say that. Cheers, mate. All right. Trying to fit in. Andy Kane joining us from Ireland as well. Well, there's Ireland and there's Northern Ireland. I don't want to offend anybody. Zach Bischoff joins us and says hello. Doman 2000 says hello. There's Patrick T. And Raj D joining us from England. Listen, guys, this is an interactive video. The whole idea is that you're not watching television passively sitting on the couch with a bag of chips. We would prefer if you would join us in our chat room. We only ask that you're kind. That's all. Just come in and say hello. If you have anything particularly critical or nasty to say, find a nice, gentle way to say it. Or better yet, don't say it at all. We love having like-minded and kind individuals. It doesn't matter that you have a certain amount of experience or knowledge in the industry. That doesn't matter to us. It doesn't matter how old or how young, or if you're male or female or religious, what ethnicity, none of that matters. Just be nice. And if you can just come into the chat and say hello, I think you're going to find this is unlike any other YouTube channel that exists today, certainly at this scale. And we would love to have you here. And there are future friends waiting to meet you. If all you did was pop in and say hello, everything else kind of happens on its own. And me talking almost becomes a distraction to the interaction that happens in the chat room. This is a very unique channel where the gem, the soul of this channel, the actual value isn't in my content, it's in the community. And we'd love for you to be a part of it. It doesn't cost anything but kindness. It's really, really a low bar. You'd be surprised, but we'd love to see you in there. Please pop in and say hello. If you're watching the video after it airs, we always go live at 1:00 p.m. Phoenix time. You can Google what time is it in Phoenix right now and then compare it to what your clock says if you've got to figure out the time difference. It's really easy. When we go live, it's always unscripted, unedited, because I've been in this business, how long? Over 30 years. I don't go to a client with a list of instructions, right? I'm long past that in my career. Gordon Ramsay isn't looking at a cookbook. And Gordon Ramsay doesn't tolerate disrespect and nastiness from the people he's training. So I like to say that, you know, kind of like that, okay? Not necessarily mean, but I am going to stand up for what I know is right. I'm going to stand up for not tolerating disrespect. And I'm going to protect this community more than anything. I'm very protective of it. This is an amazing community, and I'm not going to have somebody come in and poison the well. Not on my watch. But at the same time, I am also the nicest person and will return to you your kindness in double. And that's how I think society should work. For me, that's just how I was raised. A Gen X kid, okay? So latchkey kid. We had to learn to sort of do everything on our own, not to expect anybody to help. And if somebody did help, we were profoundly grateful for it. So, all right, that's where I come from, if you're new here. Thomas Mac T says hello. There's Kurt Schlegel, and let's see who else. More Tom joins us. Welcome in there, Thomas. Dazzle555 says hello. Welcome in, Dazzle. There's Wayne Ellison joining us, saying hello. Paul Howe says hello, along with Robert Kachna. Z-Dens pops in and says hello. Welcome in. There's Nicholas Barlow saying good afternoon. Rick Lakes, all the way from Minnesota, is joining us. Oh, I bet it's cold there. Alej DePage renews membership here. Now a member for 24 months. Thank you so much for that, Alej. I'm sure it's a name I am completely butchering, but I do the best I can. What else do we have? There's a couple names in the chat that I can't make out their symbols or things like that. There's Alice Dean joining us from the UK. Welcome in, Alice. Marsman50 saying hello from Wisconsin. Mecca Cameron said they're getting a snowstorm here in Alabama. Is that what it is? Bama? Jack Kugamis says hello. It's 1 degree Celsius in Toronto, Canada. He says welcome back. Thanks, Jack. All right, now let me just tell you what I know about Alienware laptops. This should be quick. I don't know a lot about them, other than they're over-engineered. It's pretty common that Dell/Alienware branded machines are built complicated. If you think that I'm simply going to pull a panel and change a battery and this video is over, you must never have worked on an Alienware before, specifically an Alienware laptop. We're going to likely dig in pretty deep into this with removing lots of screws and lots of little connectors just for a simple battery replacement. This is the original battery from 2015. Now, the only reason it occurred to me that this needed a new battery was, as I mentioned, this is Mara's laptop. She doesn't often use it. When we took our trip recently to California, she brought this with her, and she brings with her this power pack that she keeps plugged into the laptop at all times. And it occurred to me, it's been a while since you used the laptop. Will it turn on without the power pack? No. Whether or not you use the battery, any battery, car battery, whatever. When we're talking about rechargeable batteries, not like Duracell. Duracells and Energizer batteries, though alkaline batteries have a 10-year shelf life if you don't use them. Laptop batteries, not so much. Car batteries, not so much. You get 3-4 years, whether you used it or you didn't use it, it's going to need to be replaced. Period. Just the way it is. Now, that's not to say the laptop won't work. It just means you won't be able to run it on battery, or your battery life will be severely diminished. Instead of 4 or 5 hours, you might get 15 minutes, if you're lucky. And that's just normal. That's just how batteries work. Now, in another 10 or 15 or 20 years, you'll probably hear me up here again going, remember all that stuff you knew about batteries? It doesn't apply anymore. This is where we're at today. So, again, I've never opened this. There are already a number of videos on YouTube that I just kind of glanced through to see what I was getting myself into. And I was half tempted to open it last night because I don't even know that I've ordered the right battery. Sometimes big laptop manufacturers will change components because, say, for example, they can't get a specific component from a part provider. So what do? Shut down your production line? No, you switch it out for another component and you keep production moving. And then the serial number will dictate the individual specifications of the laptop you bought. So even if you bought a Dell XPS 13 9570, that doesn't mean that the battery you have, or even the sound chip or the network chip, or even the screen, will necessarily be the same for every Dell 13 9570. It's very possible that one or the other of the components had run out and they had to swap it for something else. But what you can be sure of is if you go to Dell support and enter your serial or tag, it will tell you precisely what your machine has. Now, in the case of looking up the battery, I really couldn't find much defining information from the Dell support site. This is 10 years old and there's just not much there anymore. There's some stuff. So instead, I looked at YouTube and found that in the disassembly or battery replacement videos I've seen on the 17R3, they're all using the same battery. So I feel pretty confident I've ordered the right battery. Why didn't I just open it and look first? Because I was in California and the battery was going to take a week to arrive. So while we were in California, we were in for the night. I Googled it, did my research, and when I say research, maybe 15 minutes, looked on eBay, looked at Dell, and looked at Amazon. And in this case, I could not get a Dell genuine battery. No matter what I did, I just couldn't find one. Some people were selling used batteries, which is weird. It's like selling used water. You can keep it. I only flushed once with it. It's perfectly fine. No, it's been used. I don't want a used battery. So then it's like, okay, well, there are these manufacturers that I've never heard of that are selling the battery that looks like a Dell battery. The reviews are mixed. Some people say it's great. Some people say it was great for a few months and now it's not holding the charge. And I thought, you know, for 40 bucks or whatever, 50 bucks, let me just order it. It took a week to come in. It'll be there when we get back, and we'll do this video when we get back. We got back the other day and we're already ready to do the video. But I want you to know it is entirely possible, and don't be surprised if I open this laptop and the battery we ordered does not match the battery that's in here. It should, but I don't know because these videos aren't scripted, edited, or rehearsed. So what you see is real, no differently than if Mara were a customer. She said, I have a Dell laptop, can you change the battery in it? In fact, that's another video coming up. There's a customer who reached out to me with a Dell XPS. It's about 10 years old. He said, can you change the battery? I said, well, are you sure it's the battery? He goes, well, look, I feel it's the battery. I'll pay for the battery. And if it's not the battery, that's on me. It's not on you. I said, okay, then order the battery, because I know the battery from Dell is going to take about 10 days to come in, and we'll be back from our vacation by then. So why don't you order the battery? Call me when it comes in, and we'll make arrangements. And when we do, I will make that video on replacing the battery on a Dell XPS laptop. He should have that battery by now. I haven't heard from him, so I might need to call and follow up. Or he hasn't received it yet. This isn't something that we want to wait for the customer to call and say, I need it today. I mean, I'm not a battery store. I don't have an inventory of batteries. And if I did, the longer those batteries have been sitting on the shelf, the less life they have in them. When I sell it to you new, it may only have half its life left. That's the downside if you want it today. You're going to get what's available at whatever price I charge, and I won't be the cheapest because it costs money to buy that inventory, especially at what I had to pay for it 2 years ago, which is probably more expensive than it is today, but I can provide it today fast. If I ship you a computer overnight via FedEx, if that's a $100 computer or a $10,000 computer, the cost of shipping is the same. And sometimes the cost of shipping is worth more than the item you're shipping, at least in that example. So there is a price for convenience. An emergency room visit is a lot more money than a scheduled doctor visit. Now, looking at the bottom of this laptop, we've got a panel here, and underneath this panel should be our storage and RAM, which is great that you can access that easily. However, the battery is going to require all of the screws removed along with the panel separated, and that's just the beginning. Lucky me. Actually, I do enjoy doing this stuff, and especially if it's not the same stuff over and over and over again. So for me, being able to work on a machine model, you know, I've certainly worked on many of Dell models, but not this specific Dell model. So that's kind of fun for me to get to explore unfamiliar territory for me. And I will say that when you get these expensive gaming laptops, it's almost universally true that they are difficult to work on. I'm missing something here. Just a lot of clicking. There it goes. And as suspected, we have a few things in here that I thought I'd check out and replace while we're in here, none of which is thermal paste, because it's a complete waste of time if I haven't made that clear. This is a mechanical hard drive. That's got to go. This machine, as fast as it was 10 years ago, is still respectably fast if it wasn't being held up by the I/O speeds of a mechanical drive. It also has an NVMe drive right here. I'm going to guess Gen 3, I don't know. This looks like a generic Samsung drive. Those usually begin with like a part number like SM, SM951, SM whatever. The SM is Samsung. And it's an OEM drive they make for others, like Dell. We have another M.2 slot right here for another NVMe drive. We have a Wi-Fi card, which could be upgraded if we want to, right there. We've got two SO-DIMM slots. Right there is our RAM. And of course, we have the mechanical drive. Now, this is the part that's shocking. The battery exists underneath this for the entire length. The battery kind of has two modules on it. And then like a little... it's all one piece, but it's like there's no battery in the middle. It's more like there's plastic connecting two batteries together, and it looks like a letter U, and it fits underneath this particular area here. And so for all of this plastic to come off, this NVMe drive has to come out. This hard drive has to come out. The RAM can stay in. We don't need to remove it, I don't think. But you see all these little ribbon cables? All of these have to come off very, very carefully. And there's more than just these three, but these are right there in your face. These antennas for the Wi-Fi are going to have to come off, because you can see anything that's sitting on top of this plastic will prevent us from pulling the plastic off. It should be pretty common sense when you look at it. There's no harm if you try to pull the plastic cover off and it's not like something is giving you some resistance. First of all, be gentle, and if you feel resistance, look and see if you've missed a cable somewhere. Shouldn't cause any harm. It'll also help if you use your phone and you take pictures along the way of how it all looked when you took it apart, and maybe its stages of disassembly, so you know how it all goes back together. I have the benefit of making a video, so I can always go back and look at my video if I forget which way did this go on, or where did this screw go, or where does this wire go. And you know, you could do that too. With modern smartphones, you could set it on a little stand, turn your video recorder on, it'll record for hours on most smartphones, most modern ones. Should have plenty of memory for that, and the video will be crystal clear, provided you're not blocking the camera with your hands. So I think still photos just along the way are probably all it takes. And then of course you can always refer to YouTube videos for disassembly, teardown videos, unless it's a brand new model that just came out. And usually some content creator wants to be first. It's usually not long after a model comes out that somebody's got a teardown. I've even seen teardowns of prototypes before the model's even available to the public. So depending on how interested you are in getting that deep into how far you want to get into the repair of your laptop. Some laptops are very easy to work on. There were some Dells that if you just wanted to change a hard drive, there were just a couple screws, the drive slid out. You didn't have to take anything apart. But those were the days. That Ace Magic laptop we've got, that cheap one, it's a few screws and the whole back pops off and there's everything, fully upgradable. Battery, NVMe storage, RAM, one of the easiest. And you know, I didn't expect that from a $350, what was that, the AX16. It's no rocket ship, but wow, is that super easy to maintain. I made the false assumption that the cheaper it is, the harder and more frustrating it would be to work on, or the more difficult parts would be. But all the parts are standard except the battery, and the battery is easily available and much easier to swap than this $3,000 machine's battery. Also has a longer battery life, but a gaming laptop is going to suck down power like nobody's business. It's a 17-inch screen, because this is an Alienware 17. That first number indicates the size of the screen. It's super thick, it's super heavy, it's very hot when it runs, and it can get very loud. It's also very expensive. This is what we call a gaming laptop. That's what it's intended. But that's, in order for it to perform like a gaming desktop, it's a little bit more like a gaming desktop than it is a laptop in all of these regards. Now, if we want to, before I get too far in this, we can boot this up and see what temps we're running, just out of curiosity. I am sure these vents are likely going to need to be cleared out. And then we run the temp test again, and you should see a dramatic decrease depending on how clogged up they are. You should see a dramatic decrease in our temperature and our fan noise without changing thermal paste. I know the logic. I'm in there anyway, I might as well. So much damage is caused to machines by people who thought it was going to be easy, got in over their head, and actually made it worse. So I would say leave that alone. But do what you're going to do. But you've been warned. Okay, that's all I'm saying. All right, let's fire it up. Let's make sure it works before we even get in there. So let me get this hooked up right quick, and we'll take a look at what RAM is in there, what processor it has. We can run Cinebench on it just briefly, the first 90 seconds, just to see what kind of temps we're getting. so that we're not sitting here all day waiting for a complete test. But that should get us in the ballpark of something to compare it to for when we're done, right? Otherwise, I suppose ignorance is bliss, and we're back to the whole supplements thing again. I need a power cable, which we have right here. By the way, while this was an expensive laptop, this laptop, as far as I know, has never needed a repair in its entire existence. And to this day, I'm not even sure I would refer to this as a repair. This is more of an upgrade. We're upgrading the battery, we're upgrading the storage, and we're going to do some maintenance. That's it. It's not in for any service. Mara never had any complaints or problems. She didn't mind plugging it in. It was bugging me. And I thought, hey, that's good content. So maybe if I didn't have a YouTube channel, I wouldn't be doing this at all. She doesn't mind plugging it in. She's got no complaints. Leave it alone. All right, let's get this thing opened up. This is a big laptop. That's a full-size keyboard right there with a numeric keypad and everything. By today's standards, the trackpad's relatively small, though. All right, let's fire this bad boy up. I know we've got, what, the Alienware head, I guess, is the power button. I don't know. Oh, yeah, that seems to have done it. And then does this have HDMI out on it that we can, oh, yeah. Yeah, it does. So let me turn this back around and let me get the, Mara? Oh, Mara. She's got a login that requires a password, which is a big no-no when we're filming. Let's see. HDMI cable, that'll go. What would you like? You have not removed your login requirement on this laptop.
Yes, that's correct.
So that's going to make it very hard for me because I have to continually reboot this. And every time I reboot it, I've got your whole name and your PIN. Can you just go ahead and remove your PIN under user in the control panel?
Yes.
Where did the login go? There it goes. Should have checked this last night.
I'm sorry, I didn't think about that when I was cleaning it up.
Yeah, so normally if I bring a client's computer up to show you, I want all the desktop icons moved into a folder for their own privacy and security, and also for my own sanity, because if I need to copy Crystal Diskmark or CPU-Z to the desktop, I don't want to have to search all over the desktop to find out where it is. So what we're going to do is just change the account. Actually, you can just have it change the password to a blank password, and then it'll just boot right to the desktop. So that's all done in the control panel. This is Windows 10, right?
Yes.
Okay. So under accounts.
No.
Oh, the trackpad is RGB. Are you kidding me? You have an RGB.
I loved this laptop. I used this at charity events. I took it LAN gaming everywhere.
Usually the trackpad is black.
It's perfect. The screen is a great size. I kicked butt gaming on this thing.
Because it was RGB?
Yes.
Okay. Get that password off of there.
I like the fact that the trackpad has buttons.
The trackpad...
Because I hate trackpads.
The trackpad doesn't have RGB around it. The actual trackpad is backlit like a key on a keyboard. And it's shifting colors to match the colors that are shifting here on the back and on the Alienware logo just below the screen. They're all changing to the same purple, red, green. So the whole, where you drag your finger, that whole thing changes color. I've never seen that before. All right, so she's got that getting removed, and then we should be able to get to work here.
Uh-oh. I may not remember what my password was. I had it set up a little different, like in 2015. So, do you want me to
You're
pull
not,
back
I always thought you weren't
memories?
like an average customer and you knew this stuff.
We're talking in 10 years.
You're not using the same password for 10 years?
Are you kidding?
No, good. Let's see. Username or password is incorrect. Oh, I like how you've... Oh, I see. Right here. Can we just do this? Can we change it? Put your old pin in. And then can we just click OK?
No, new.
It requires it. Sometimes, like when you change a password,
just
you
put a new
your...
one in that you know. Not difficult.
No, but it keeps coming up with your full name every time. So
well, can't do much about that. Unless you just remove my account, which I
put your pin in, please. And I'm going to create a new pin. And that'll be fine. That's fine.
Yeah?
We're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll work around it.
I do love this laptop. It's great. It was great 10 years ago. It's great today.
It's really building those muscles up, carrying that bad boy around.
You know, I even got like my special bag. So I went to BlizzCon and I got this special bag and it holds this laptop perfectly. It holds all of my accessories perfectly. It's great. And I've had this for 10 years. Just saying. Great. Hi, everybody.
I'm going to keep my comments to myself on the size of that, weight of that bag.
Yeah, I love it.
Holy cow. Okay, so let me plug HDMI back to the show. Brought to you by BlizzCon, apparently. How are they doing today, by the way? All right, let's plug that in. And let's jump over to... I got to use this mouse over here. We're going to go over to our... It's camera 2, right? Camera 2? Camera 2. Yeah, that looks like a Mara desktop if I've ever seen one. Okay. Let's see. Let's go full screen for me right here. Right click, full screen. I need to be able to see this the way you guys at home see it. You guys see it full screen. I don't unless I go through these steps. So bear with me here. Now, there we go. That's better. Yeah, I'll show you this real quick. Let's go back to the machine itself. So all of this RGB does need cabling, right? One of the reasons you see so many cables underneath, or especially the width and size of those cables, is not only do you cable up the trackpad, right, which has its own requirement for the trackpad and the buttons, but then you also have the cabling required for that trackpad to light up like it does. And you can also see the Alienware here lighting up, and then the power button just looks like it lights but doesn't change. The power button there in the center above the keyboard. And you'll see the trackpad looks like an ordinary trackpad until I touch it. And then it starts to light. That's just really weird. So I wanted to show that to you. I've never seen that before. It says it's got an Intel Core i7, but it doesn't really tell us what generation. I don't think. Yeah, it just says Core i7 inside, which isn't really much information regarding specifically which Core i7 it has over the last 15 years. So, you know, since Intel started using that terminology, was the end of that sentence. So let's go back over to this desktop here, and we'll take a look at some of the specifications regarding, for example, which Core i7 we have. And we can do that simply by right-clicking the Start menu and go to System, right up here. And let's see what we got. Alienware Mara. It's an Intel Core i7 6700. So we're on a 6th gen. We really need to be 8th gen or newer to be Windows 11 compatible. So I don't expect this will meet Windows 11 requirements. It's only got 16 gigs of RAM. It's Windows 10 Pro 22H2. All right. When it comes to storage, let's take a look over on the C drive over here. and we'll right click this. Well, I don't even have to right click. We have a 1 terabyte. That's got to be our NVMe, and the data drive must be a mechanical. Go under hardware right here. So you don't even need to use a piece of software in most cases, like Crystal Disk Info. Although Crystal Disk Info gives you a lot of information. The basic information is right in Windows if you know where to look. So HGST, that's, what does that stand for? Hitachi Group or something? Anyway, that's our mechanical drive. That's going to be a hard drive-ectomy that we're going to perform here during today's live surgery. And the PM951, what I say, it was SM? PM is what I meant to say. PM is the, if you see that, it's usually Samsung. In this case, it says Samsung right on it, but Samsung does not put their name first because they're selling this to Dell as a Dell drive. And so they discount it and they tell Dell warranty and support falls on you, and we'll sell you these at a discounted price because warranty and support cost companies a lot of money. So if you're willing to sacrifice warranty and support, we'll give you a cheaper price. Dell says, yeah, give us the cheaper price. We're going to warranty and support the rest of it anyway, so we might as well throw that on there. And by making the price more appealing, we can sell more units. And that's the logic the companies make with each other. And we could certainly upgrade this C drive to something bigger. I don't know what generation it is, if it's Gen 3 or is it even earlier than that? I'm not sure. Or is it Gen 3 by 2 versus by 4? And so for that, what I'm going to do, we'll come back over here to camera 1, is I'm going to grab my utilities flash drive. Now the utilities flash drive, I use portable utilities that don't install. And the reason I don't install them is they're not my computer. And I think it's disrespectful. If I'm borrowing your car, I'm not going to eat food in it and leave wrappers behind. I'm going to return the car to you the same way you gave it to me because that's respectful. It's also professional. When I work on somebody's computer, I don't want to install any software on it other than what the software requested by the customer is. They want Microsoft Office, I can put that on for them. But my system utilities, if I install them and then uninstall them, still leave behind folders, files, and registry entries, including any logins I do to any of my personal accounts. They stay tied into this computer indefinitely. So rather than deal with that embarrassment and lack of professionalism, I use portable utilities only that run right off the USB, or what I'll often do is just copy them off of the USB onto the desktop. When I'm done with them, I erase them. It leaves no trace. Very similar to a Burning Man mentality. When you're going out to the middle of the desert, you bring everything with you you need to survive and you pack it all out. You don't leave any garbage behind because you're basically being disrespectful not only to the property but to Mother Earth. It's not the Burning Man way. I carry that forward in pretty much every area of my life. I don't throw garbage on the floor. If I'm walking on a sidewalk and I have a wrapper, I wait until I find a garbage can. I don't just drop the wrapper on the ground. When we were walking around Disneyland and Universal Studios, they have people walking around with little, gripper things to pick up plastic bottles and wrappers, and they keep the park clean at all times. And these people are always picking. I mean, people are such slobs and they're so disrespectful. I can't get over the amount of trash that is the mentality that that person's there to pick it up. So, they're going to pick it up anyway. You might as well drop it. I don't get what they're thinking. I understand if you're on a ride and something falls out of your hands and there's stuff underneath the ride. That's a different thing than when you're just walking through the park and there's bottles and trash all over the floor. And you're like, seriously, this is a nice place. Or at least it was until they showed up. In much the same way, I don't want to leave litter or trash, meaning uninstalled programs that the client never asked for that are my tools, left behind on a customer system. It is just extraordinarily disrespectful and discourteous and therefore unprofessional. So the utilities I'm about to show you, you can download these utilities, just Google for them, and download the zip file version of like CPU-Z, Crystal Disk Mark. The zip file is the portable version, and it'll leave no trace behind. You just run it when you need to run it, and always be sure to check for the latest versions. This is not typically something that you would need very often, unless you're some kind of technochondriac and you have to constantly monitor the health status of your computer every day or every month. It shouldn't be used unless it's needed. Unless there is a symptom that you are looking to address, there's no sense looking for a symptom. That makes no sense. Therefore, there's probably a new version of these utilities released in between when you need to use them. So before you use them, if you're saving the utility, which by the way, we don't need to do that anymore. There's no reason for you to keep your own personal libraries anymore. The internet is your library. So you can get it anywhere in the world. You can download the latest version for free, and it's practically faster to download it than it is for me to copy it off this flash drive. But I always have to check and make sure I have the latest editions on my flash drive. And sometimes I don't keep up. Sometimes you guys let me know, hey, that CPU-Z is 2 versions old. Oh, okay, I'll go and get the latest version. And it's a never-ending process, because the Crystal Disk Mark and Hardware Info and Hardware Monitor and Crystal Disk Info, they all get updated in their own schedules. And you should just download it when you need it, and that way you're always getting the latest version. You don't have to worry about that. Sometimes I go out to clients' locations where the internet isn't working. In that case, I need these on a flash drive, but otherwise, you just download it. You go to another computer and download it. I could download it on my phone, honestly, and transfer it. But regardless, I'm going to plug this in, and then let's go back over to camera 2. And that opens up my utilities flash drive. We're gonna grab a few utility. Whoops, where's my mouse? We're gonna grab a few utilities here. I'm so used to a bigger trackpad. I was looking at the screen and using my hand to feel for the trackpad, and I ended up closing that window. Let's see. We want to go to downloads. We want to go to what's likely the E drive. This PC right here. We'll go to the E drive. And then we're going to go to PC testing software. And we can grab CPU-Z out of here. Crystal Disk Info, just out of curiosity, just to get more detail if we want it, although it doesn't really change anything for us. Crystal Disk Mark Portable, if we want to take a look at before and after of our hard drive speeds. And then HWI Hardware Info version 810 or HW Monitor. There are 2 competing products, if you will. Pick one or the other. These are all portable. And close that out. I think that's all I need off of there. So let's start with CPU-Z. So by just looking at this portable software, it'll tell us what's inside the laptop without having to open the laptop and look with regards to what kind of RAM do we have? How many RAM sockets do we have? Where this doesn't get accurate is when your RAM is soldered onto your board on a modern day machine. But on older laptops or laptops that still use socketable RAM, we could see, for example, under motherboard what our BIOS version is, just to see if there's a newer version. That latest BIOS is from 4 years ago. Under memory, there's 2 sections for memory. One is just called memory, and one is called SPD, or serial presence device. And I usually look under the SPD to see if we've got DDR4 or DDR3, and specifically what the specs of the memory are in slot 1, slot 2, and if there is a slot 3 or 4. So without even opening the laptop, I could have a client call and say, could you upgrade my RAM? I'm not familiar with their laptop or what RAM they have. I can connect remotely using Instant House Call, for example. When I'm connected to their computer, download CPU-Z, takes about 30 seconds, if that. Run this, and then see what RAM they have. Go online, order the RAM that I know will work in their laptop because I have all the specs here. So as long as I get something that's DDR4 in 2133 or faster, in other words, 2133 or a larger number of DDR4, then I can buy the RAM, let the client know when it comes in, and schedule a one-time visit to open the laptop, replace the RAM, and go. Because I'm not going to have every kind of RAM in inventory. This isn't a very common job at these days. So we've got 2 sticks that are 8 gigs each. Now we can put up to the maximum in this. The biggest DDR4 you could buy is 32 gigs each for a total of 64. So we could literally quadruple the amount of RAM in this if we want to, and if I have it in inventory. 2133 is about as slow as RAM gets, so pretty much anything should work in this that's DDR4 SODIMM. SODIMM being the smaller laptop memory. When we look at Crystal Disk info, we can get the details of the drives. And again, as long as you have backups, it doesn't matter if Crystal Disk info says your drive is failing. Sometimes it's not even accurate. That's not why I use Crystal Disk info. We have the Samsung 1 terabyte drive here. It's been powered on 101 times, and it's only got 187 hours on it, which is only, I mean, as far as drive day, it's only 36 days of use. That's barely used. If we go up here to drive D, that's going to be the mechanical HGST. That is a SATA 600 drive. It's been powered on 2 times less than the NVMe. I'm not sure how that math works. For 875 hours, which is again 36 days. So essentially, these 2 drives came with this laptop. That's what I can ascertain from this data. All this other data down here is a waste of my time. I wouldn't be bothered with it. It can create a lot of anxiety unnecessarily when you're not having any problems. And as long as you have current backups, who cares? You're not going to prevent the failure. Just be ready for it, which you should be ready anyway, because failure will happen in a way you never thought was coming on a day you never saw it coming. You're not going to be getting warnings in most cases. It just won't work one day, and I hope you have backups. So the only other thing I wanted to look at was if there was a transfer mode here. And you'll see this is all blanked out. This tells me this is a very early NVMe drive, and so upgrading it apart from capacity probably will not increase our speed. But speaking of speed, let's go ahead and run Crystal Disk Mark. And I want you to see the extreme speed difference between a mechanical failure-prone drive from yesteryear to the solid-state, multiple times more reliable and multiple times faster technology of solid-state drives, and why I personally only use mechanical drives sparingly and only when necessary, such as very large capacity servers and NAS devices where solid-state drives simply aren't there yet for capacity. Price to capacity, hard drives are a better deal. And on a network such as a NAS, the network speed is the choke point in most cases, not the hard drive speed. But on most computers, laptops, and desktops, and even mini PCs, the storage can be the choke point on those. So we're going to go to Crystal Disk Mark, and we'll run this again. It's all portable. No installation is necessary. We're going to start by looking at the mechanical drive first. So the E drive, that's our flash drive, which I've left plugged in. The D drive is that HGST mechanical. And be prepared for a yawn fest, because even the fastest hard drives are 10% or less the speed of a modern day NVMe. Sometimes it's even 5%. Where an NVMe drive can be 95% or greater faster than a mechanical drive. So for example, modern day Generation 5 NVMe drive can run up to 15,000 megabytes per second. This hard drive is running 130. So if you take 130 and subtract it from 15,000, that's the speed difference. It's that dramatic. Now, obviously, this is not a Gen 5 compatible motherboard or Gen 4 or Gen 3. Each speed doubles, Gen 3 being about 3600, Gen 4 7200, Gen 5 about 15,000, right? I'm rounding the numbers here to keep it simple. Gen 6 will be 30,000. As such, the prices go up, the speed goes up, the heat goes up, the power consumption goes up, et cetera, just like with a car. More power, more gas, less gas mileage. You know, if you've got a turbo, something like that, you need an intercooler, et cetera. Now, or at least supercharger, you need an intercooler. Now, this is typical of a hard drive that's a 2.5-inch drive from 10 years ago. They haven't gotten much better today. You might get 200 out of a modern day high-end mechanical hard drive. Last I checked, 200 minus 15,000 is the speed difference. And when you look at those numbers, it's really not that much better than 130. Granted, it's almost twice as fast as 130. But the other thing is the mechanical drives, they're noisier, they consume more power, and they are far, far, far more likely to fail. You'll be replacing mechanical drives long before you have to replace a solid-state drive. Whether it's NVMe or SATA, it doesn't matter. That's just mechanical things that move versus solid-state electronics that are soldered in place and have no movement. Once you remove the movement, then the only thing you're battling at this point is heat. And, you know, even that is overblown on the internet. So many people are so obsessed with heat on the internet. And yet in my business, it's pretty rare that we ever fix a heat-related computer problem. It does happen, it does, but it's very rare. But the way people talk about it online, you think it affected everybody all the time, and everybody's so afraid of it, like, oh, it's gonna get me. I mean, polio still exists in the world, but you're not likely gonna get it. So I understand being cautious and being careful, but at some point, you know, you're just being ridiculous in my opinion, because it never would have happened to you to begin with. But as a technician running a professional business, it's very important to me. I'm not scamming my customers. If you want to be scammed and you want to scam yourself, have at it. Now, while this runs, let me just take a quick look over here at the chat room and see what I've been missing. Hey, live Windows training with Doug Betts joins us. Welcome in to Doug. If you're a fan of interactive technical videos, you definitely got to check out Doug's channel. And Doug usually is on earlier than me. Sometimes our shows overlap. Not on purpose, it's just the way the schedules work. But oftentimes you can watch his show and then watch my show on days that we both broadcast. Other times you can watch his show or my show when we alternate. Again, we don't coordinate that, it just happens. And if you enjoy this kind of content from a real working computer technician, interacting with everybody in their audience, I think you'll enjoy Doug's channel, and be sure and check him out. Douglas Burchell and Ole Peterson join us and say hello. Mara says she put the original specs, price, and battery details in the video description below this video. So be sure and check those out. She does a lot of work with that, keeping all that information updated. And look at the thumbnail she made for this. I think she did an outstanding job on the thumbnail, but I think she was biased because it's her machine. And she turned herself into an alien, look, which is really her true form. I'm pretty sure. That's like the movie, the miniseries V. I think your skin peels off and there's an alien under it. She's not from Earth. That's all I know. Let's see. Scott saying hello. Bernard C says hello. There's Patrick T. So some people say, well, you haven't even, gotten to the battery yet. Well, we have to establish a before and after in order to have a comparison. Some people, they're like, let me take the pill so I don't have to exercise. If you want to go through life looking for all the shortcuts, you're really just shortcutting yourself. It's important that I show the real amount of time it takes and real evidence on video to show the difference that was made and whether the job was worthwhile. And for those reasons, these videos last long, much like a day in a classroom. Perhaps you would be an 8-year-old telling your teacher, this class is too long. I don't have time to learn today. Just give me the gist of it and let me go. Because if you did that, you'd probably be homeless today. But this is how I see a lot of behavior from adults, presumably, who just say, I'm not here to learn. I'm here to take the answers and go. Those answers are worthless to you. If you don't have all of the buildup and foundation behind what we're doing, why we're doing it, the before and after comparison, the amount of time you need to schedule, you will be woefully unprepared to utilize that answer in any meaningful way. So you're only causing harm. The only person you're hurting is you. When we do these videos, it's as much about hanging out with each other, more so than it is about making a commercial for you. And so when I hear people say your videos take too long, what they're saying is we want you to show us advertising. That's what they're saying. If you're looking for advertising, you've come to the wrong channel. If you're looking for friends and people you'd like to get to know, who would like to get to know you. It takes time, and we would love it if you would join us in our chat room while we're live, because it adds a depth to video content that you just, this is the future, by the way. You will see more and more interactivity being promoted in the years ahead, because that's the disconnect that's missing from TV and YouTube, is the ability for us to talk to each other. Otherwise, you might as well go watch TV. Some of you are watching this on your TV, and it may be difficult for you to interact. But you can always use your smartphone and interact with us on your smartphone while you watch us on the TV. So just so you know. Also, many TVs, you can buy a wireless keyboard and plug it into your USB port of your TV and use your TV. A lot of people don't know that. Now, our final numbers have come up here, and I'm going to get back to the chat here in just a second. And these are the numbers on the mechanical drive. Now, if you're in the industry or you're familiar with the current state of electronics, you're going to say to me, holy cow, I can't believe how slow that is. And I'm going to say to you, this is 10 years ago. But at the same time, people go, well, my experience is that this kind of stuff doesn't last. Well, what's your experience from 10 years ago? Okay, well, and as ridiculous as you think these speeds are slow because the drive is 10 years old, so is the thought process of even suggesting that your experience from 10 years ago has any impact on technology today. If you don't constantly renew your experience, you're effectively living through PTSD, preventing any new experience because you think it's a waste of your time, because I've already been there and done that. No, you haven't. The technology is rapidly evolving, and it quickly leaves people behind who refuse to keep up, and this is your evidence of that. I see no reason to go to a mechanical or a solid state drive when my mechanical drive is 10 years old and it works fine. This is what they'll say. Those new SSDs, they might be fast, but you can't recover data from them. False. They're more prone to failure, completely opposite of the truth, and they're expensive. Not anymore. So if you hold yourself back, the only person you're harming is you, and this is the evidence of that. This is how different the technology has changed from 2015 to where we are now. I want you to see those speeds, and I want you to think about it. This is proof of how fast technology advances and why what you learned 10 or more years ago does not apply today in most cases. With regards to computers and computer technology, networking has changed. The ease of which file sharing, hooking up printers, people aren't calling me to have help hooking up printers anymore. That's all in the past, but that was an everyday thing in 10 years ago. So this is the mechanical drive. Let's just save this, and we'll say, save it as an image, and we're going to call this, I don't know, HGST D drive. Crystal, just mark. We'll save it as a JPEG and we'll put it on the desktop. Okay, now we're going to run the same thing on the C drive. Now this is the NVMe drive, but even NVMe drive speeds have quadrupled since this came out 10 years ago. Approximately every 2 to 3 years, a new generation of PCIe comes out. So PCIe 3, PCIe 4, PCIe 5, and now PCIe 6 is around the corner. So I expect this is probably going to run under 1,000, but it's still probably 8 times faster than the mechanical. Now, if we want to change this, it wouldn't even benefit us to try and make it faster. Oh, okay, so this is, based on these speeds, we are running at approximately half the speed of PCIe Gen 3 by 4. So what's half of 4? 2. I didn't need to answer that, did I? So this is a PCIe Gen 3 by 2 connector. That's how we can determine that. So if we put a PCIe Gen 4 drive, like a Samsung 970 EVO, it's going to run at the same speed. It's going to be held back by the motherboard. That's okay. I don't mind. They're cheap. It's not like I'm going to save any money getting a Gen 2. Good luck finding one. Or Gen 3 by 2, I mean to say. So we could just put a Gen 3 by 4 in there and let it run at half speed. This will also keep it nice and cool. We could maybe put a Gen 4 or Gen 5 in there and it will still run at this speed. So why waste your money? It may not be compatible, but it might. It should be backwards compatible. But I wouldn't, because I wouldn't just take money and throw it out the window of the car when I'm driving either. That makes about the same amount of sense. Mara, do you want to change the NVMe drive out to a 2 terabyte, or do you want to just leave it as is? Because it's not going to make any difference in performance, but we could double the capacity to 2. I might see if I have a 4 terabyte, but that seems a little excessive for a computer this old. What do you think?
The answer is yes. I want to get mechanical drive. I want to upgrade the Wi-Fi, and I want to upgrade the RAM.
The you didn't answer the question. I did not ask any of that yet. All I'm asking, the one thing you didn't answer, you have a C drive.
Yes.
The C drive is apparently Gen 3 by 2.
Yes.
The closest thing I've got is a Samsung 970 Evo Plus or Pro. That's a 2 terabyte. It's going to run at the same speed.
Perfect.
But instead of 1 terabyte, you'll have 2.
Okay.
Now, do you want me to look and see if I have a 4? Because it seems like that's probably a bit overkill for this.
The 2 terabyte works fine.
What if we put in 2 Samsung 970 2 terabytes and take out the mechanical drive?
Yes.
Then you'll have a total of 4.
Yes.
You're good with that?
Yes.
And that's a more inexpensive, on par with this laptop. You know, it's an older technology, so it's less money. It's not 4, but you will have 4 terabytes between the two.
Right.
We're good?
Yes.
Okay. With regards to RAM, and I know this is a stupid question, what do you want to upgrade the RAM to?
Don't ask a stupid question.
64 gigs, right? You want the maximum?
Duh.
Oh my God. All right, and with regards to the Wi-Fi, you can't put Wi-Fi 7.
I'm willing to negotiate down to 32.
You go to 32?
I'll go to 32.
That's more reasonable, especially for a machine this age. Okay, with regards to the Wi-Fi, I think the fastest we can put in here, maybe 5, maybe 6. Sometimes the M.2 connector changes for some of these, but let me see what we've got.
Okay.
Okay, and the numbers on this drive, you know, read speeds were at 1800 on our sequential reads, and half of that on our sequential writes. So I think the write speed and the read speed, let me rephrase, when we change out this NVMe drive to the Samsung 970, I think the read and write speed sequentials are going to be identical. I think they're both going to be just under 2000 when we're done. So there will be a boost in write speed performance in theory if I'm right.
Okay.
So, okay, that's all I needed to know.
Okay.
Okay, back to your
I
cave.
can get back out of here because it's freezing.
It is not freezing.
That fan is on.
There's a studio light that'll warm you up like what do they call those heat lamps at the food?
Maybe I should stand back there for 10 minutes.
Put you on like a rotisserie. Rotate you around like a chicken.
Ah.
All right. So there's the numbers right there. Well, there, just finished. And we're going to save this as, excuse me, we're going to save this as PM951 NV, oops. I think that's what it was called. But that's our C drive. And we'll make that a JPEG. And we'll save that to the desktop. Okay, so we have before and after, but we still don't know about what's the heat like. So let's just very quickly, in Carey's way of very quickly, which means, you know, another 20 minutes. Let's run hardware info. Let's take a look at what our CPU temps are currently. The laptop's actually quite quiet. And as far as I know, it has never been cleaned. So we got 10 years of buildup in there regardless. Oh, we have a sensor error. Let's take a look at what we've got here. Core temperatures is what I want. Wow, this trackpad is super tiny. Let's get rid of that. And let's make this a little bit bigger. Here, like so. And under... Come on. I'm used to my other trackpad, so this one works a little bit differently. The CPU package, CPU cores for graphics, voltage offsets. We might just have to... Oh, here's what I'm looking for right there. So what is that, 4 cores? It's a pretty warm idle, if you ask me. I think we should be sitting around the 30s. So even though it's quiet, it's still, by today's standards, running a bit warm. Was that normal? Was this considered 50 degrees Celsius idle time normal 10 years ago? I don't really know for sure, but I want to say no. Usually somewhere in the 30s is normal. But let's go ahead and copy off Crystal Disk Info because I forgot to copy that. So we'll go back to this PC, back to the USB drive, back to the PC testing software. Again, you can download this for free. It is a portable application that does not require any install and therefore isn't copying any files in your Windows system folders or making registry changes, which again, I find very disrespectful to do that to anybody's machine unless it's your machine. And it's unprofessional. I got a feeling, I mean, if we're already hitting the 60s and 70s before we even launched the application, this is likely not going to fare well. But let's see what happens. Let me get the fire extinguisher ready. Waiting for it to load. We do get spoiled by today's technology. This would have come up already on a modern build like what we did yesterday. Now, within the first 90 seconds of running this test, we should see some pretty extreme numbers here. Let's see what happens. We're going to keep an eye on this area up here. This left side is our current temp. The minimum temp is the lowest it's recorded since we started the software, and then a maximum temp. So far, we've already hit 93 degrees Celsius, which is a little bit scary. All right. We'll let that run for just a minute. Well, you can really hear those fans crank up. Holy cow. I mean, I'm assuming, I don't know if I can really lean into it so you can hear it. That is crazy loud. So far, we're seeing 93 as a max, and probably letting this test run, we're not going to exceed that. So I'll hit stop here, and let's go ahead and run the single core, because sometimes that can result in even higher temps. But we definitely need something to compare before and after, and that's the reason I'm doing this. So again, we're going to keep an eye right up here at the top, And within the first 90 seconds of this test, it gets to about 8 minutes and 30 over here, we should see our whatever our peak is going to be here on the right side. We may have already hit our peak at 93. Now, look, 93 it's hot, and it's within the range of normal operation. However, I don't know for a fact that 93C is really equivalent to the amount of processing power that it's capable of doing at a lower temp. And I believe that likely the cause of this, if there is a problem and this isn't normal, which I don't know, is likely resulting in the heat sinks and fan vents being blocked with just the buildup that occurs over time in the natural environment. And so we're gonna, when we open this laptop up to change the battery, we're gonna make sure we clear out those fans and heat sinks to make sure that they're breathing properly. Then we can run this exact same test again so you can see for yourself what a complete waste of time thermal paste is. And again, what most other content creators do is they do both at the same time. They'll do the fan cleaning and the heatsink cleaning and change the thermal paste. And then they'll say, hey, look at how much cooler it runs. But what they're not telling you is it would have run that cool anyway without changing the thermal paste. So if you insist on wasting your time and your money and risking damaging your laptop because you don't believe me or that makes you feel good, feel right at, you know, I'm not telling you not to. I'm not telling you what to do or what not to do. I'm making some suggestions and you're willing to accept that or ignore it. I'm paid the same either way. So, all right, it looks like we're well into 2 minutes of this test, and yeah, 93C is our magic number here, and we don't need to run this any further. We've got enough information. Let's go ahead and close this out, close this out, close this out, and we'll go back over to camera 1 here. There we go. And I will pull out our flash drive, and we will shut this bad boy down. Now, when you're going to work on the inside of the laptop, it's important it's shut off. The problem is, because we have a battery, one of the first things you're going to want to do is disconnect the battery, because there's nothing worse than having this unplugged, and then while you're working on it, it turns on from the power from the battery because you've inadvertently pressed a button. So the very first thing you want to do is disconnect the battery before you're changing out any NVMe, before you're changing out any RAM, because there's a little bit of voltage that's always through the motherboard. That's why a battery will fail just having a laptop sit. It may not be truly completely off. It's still vampire energy sucking some power. Very little bit, but it'll drain the battery over time. And the older the battery gets, the less power retention it contains, and so that drainage happens much sooner. So first of all, we'll unplug the capture card, and we will unplug power, and then we'll come over here, and let's see, what do we want to start with? The hard drive, I suppose. This is easy enough. The password is password1234. You know, for the sake of this video, why not? The great thing, there's a lot of heat coming off of this, by the way. The great thing about, doing these videos live is that I can demonstrate anything temporarily. We can set passwords to be literally anything we want them to be. This thing is off, it's not connected online, and there's no chance for anybody to do anything with that. I would never advise anybody to make a public video where you're setting things up to be permanent, because you're likely going to have viewers who would rather be nasty than nice. And I mean, that's a weird way to choose to go through life, but the reality is you aren't going to change that. So it's just, that's spending any time with people like that, even acknowledging their existence, is a waste of your time. So my advice is, if you are going to make any sort of content, that you are very cautious with any details you show on the screen. That's why we've hit all the desktop icons, and then any folders you see are generic name folders anyway that might be, in this case, trips we've taken, which I'm very open about. But I don't open the folders and show you the contents. And just be aware of that if you decide you want to share something with the internet, because somebody you've never met, who you've never wronged, will attack you. Nice world we live in, isn't it? Now, before I go much further with this, as I mentioned before, we really want to disconnect the battery. I'm just getting these screws out. But before I disconnect anything, I want to make sure the battery is the first thing I disconnect. And I'm not real sure if I can access that without removing this panel. So I might go against my own advice here and remove this hard drive so that it doesn't fall out on me. But I thought I had a connector here for the battery. I thought it was, well, I might have thought wrong. But all these connectors, they need to come off. And the battery is going to be right here. This is our Wi-Fi antenna here. This is some kind of fan controller. Oh, this says BAT right here. B-A-T-T. It says release first. Okay. Wow, so the battery's back here, but the cable runs underneath the board and then back over. Is that right? No, this is the back. The battery's got to be up front, underneath the drive. Well, we're not going to see it when we remove the drive because there's a plastic tray that's part of this whole back piece, and that plastic tray is covering our battery. So our battery should be right at the end of the keyboard. And I'm looking at this backwards, so I was a little confused. This makes more sense because, yeah, the battery's that way. So this connector right here, now you don't want to yank these connectors clean off. You're going to break a connector if you do it that way. There are usually little release mechanisms, and they typically require a small screwdriver. You don't want to use pliers, and preferably don't pull on the wire. You want to be able to grab that connector. And one way that I found that works really well for me personally, let's get this out of the way. Let's just put that down before it falls. You get a little screwdriver, just a little flat edge screwdriver like this. And also, especially as I'm getting older, seeing things this tiny gets more difficult. And so without, an electron microscope, some magnifying glasses I find are very helpful. And if we look very closely, remember, I've never done this before, but these are pretty familiar connectors for ribbon cables. And although this is kind of like a ribbon cable, they've rolled it so it looks like a regular cable instead of a flat ribbon cable. But I think it's a flat ribbon cable they've rolled. And they do that in order to make room for the cover to close properly. And the end of a ribbon cable will have a long flat connector that fits into a slot and is usually held in place either with little levers at the ends of the connector that move up and down, or it snaps in. And in this case, it just looks like it snaps in as far as I can tell. Now there is a little lip at the very top of the connector. And what I'm trying to do is get my tiny screwdriver underneath there and see if I can't get the driver between the lip of the plug and the connector and give it a light twist and see if that pops out without any frustration, right? Without any issues. And there it is. So that is our battery. It says BAT right there on the label. And there are plenty of other, and I want to emphasize this, close-up specific teardown videos, more or less for every laptop out there. And the older the laptop is, the more variety of teardown videos there are done of different qualities. Some are highly edited that just quickly show the disassembly, which are not done in real time and don't show any mistakes. Others are done in real time the way I do them, but are still edited so that they can, cut to the chase a lot faster for that. They're not necessarily teaching anything other than here's how the parts come out. They don't know why you're taking the parts out. My videos are longer because I'm explaining why we're doing it and why we're doing it in this order. So understand there's a difference in the content depending on what information is being conveyed. Simply showing you how to take something apart without understanding why you're taking it apart is probably more harm than good, because you may not need to take it apart to do whatever it is you're trying to do. So I need to know first, what are you trying to do? Then I can tell you what parts need to come out, if any, to accomplish that task. But if you're just going to skip to a teardown video, you might end up taking something apart that you're going to find out later you didn't need to. Okay, so here's our mechanical drive. This has a connector on it as well. This is covered with tape. When's this drive manufactured? August of 2015. That checks out. So this has a little pull tab on it. That's interesting. And again, you want to avoid pulling on the wire when possible. And this connector is such that I'm quite sure that we have much of an alternative here. I'm going to grab my little flat edge screwdriver. A jeweler screwdriver will work just fine. And the reason they put tape on these connectors is so they don't jostle free in all of the shipping process from the factory to the warehouse to the retailer to your front door. Even though the connector can snap in, without anything to hold it in under that kind of shipping, it could pop out, and then you're going to write a negative review about how this new laptop you just ordered doesn't work and how upset you are because you were so looking forward to it. You couldn't sleep the night before. It finally arrived, and now you open it up and you go, oh, these cheap people just put tape on it. No. No. Tape was a very inexpensive way to make sure that the connector, as much as possible, would not come off. It is not critical to the operation of the laptop. Once it's in your hands, if you treat it with care and delicacy, you would never need to put tape on it. In general, because we don't know how the customer is going to treat their laptop, we put the tape back on exactly as it was, because there's no harm in having it. The harm is that a customer sees tape and they immediately think somebody cheaped out. I'm curious why this pull tab is here. Does this whole piece just come up? Is that what it's supposed to do? Ah, it does. So here's the problem. If you're yanking on this cable, and I did give it a little bit of a tug, and even that little bit of a tug, I felt something, either it was tearing the tape or a cable was being removed from the socket. Now here's the deal. As far as I'm concerned, we'll never use a SATA drive again. This whole piece, this whole mechanism and this wire are not going back in this laptop. This weighs a good half a pound, right? We're going to lighten the weight, and on top of that, we're going to remove a connector that we are not going to put back in, because no matter what we put in here, it's going to be excruciatingly slow. The only reason I would put a mechanical drive in here is if a customer said, look, I need a really large storage drive. You know what my response to that customer is going to be? Buy a USB drive. It really won't be any slower. It'll be easier to swap out if need be, or to upgrade. You won't need to involve me. It'll reduce the weight of the laptop, and it'll encourage you to keep that data drive disconnected, because if you were to get a virus, it's going to infect every drive on your machine, including those hooked up to USB. Even if there's a power spike, it could damage the machine, as well as anything connected to the machine. So for safety and security, price and convenience, if you need a large mechanical drive, my strongest advice is go USB on it. It will be cheaper and easier to maintain over time, more secure, and super easy for you to move to another machine. So if this laptop is near its end of life, as it is, now you bought a new laptop, What are the odds your new laptop's going to take a 2.5-inch drive? Pretty slim to none these days. But if you've already bought it in USB, you don't need to call me. You move your data over simply by plugging the drive into your new machine. Job done. So I try to encourage a little bit of common sense thinking, as well as, you know, again, I'm not looking for how I can make a quick buck. How can I gouge this customer for another nickel? How can I gouge this customer for another dime? That is, in general, the way businesses work in America. I want to give my customer the best value, as though they are a friend of mine that I'm looking out for. I'm not going to sell them cheap crap, because that ruins my reputation. And I'm not going to overcharge them, because that also ruins my reputation. So I'm going to do for them the same I do for everybody. It's not different because this customer drives a nicer car. I'm going to charge them more. I know businesses do that. Specifically, people like photography, you know, family photographers and things. They go to a really nice house. Your family photo is going to cost a lot more. How much more? Depends on his mood. I don't operate my business like that. If that's how somebody wants to run their business, that's their choice. But I'm just telling you, that's not how I work. The NVMe drive, we can go ahead and take that out now. I'm not worried about upgrading it at this point. I really want to get the battery out first and foremost, and we'll worry about all the storage secondary, because as you can see, this is very easy to get to. But in order for us to get to the battery, all this has to come out. Now, unfortunately, we are missing an M.2 screw for the other M.2 slot. But fortunately, I have spares. But it should have been in there. In my opinion, it should have been left in this machine from Dell. Now, there is some thermal tape stuck to the bottom of this NVMe drive, because this is a double-sided NVMe. And now this thermal tape, it doesn't really go bad. I'm going to guess somebody has been in here before me and maybe upgraded this drive. I don't know, but the tape is torn, which implies, and I didn't just tear it now. It's torn in such a way that looks awfully suspicious. Maybe it was built that way, but you can see how it's cut around the screw right here and how it's sitting on a copper plate. The copper plate's nice because copper is a great heat transfer metal. I mean, gold and platinum would be better, but I think they might affect the cost of the machine. We'll go ahead and set this. So what's interesting, again, this is a double-sided SSD, meaning it has chips on both sides. If you look at a modern-day SSD, we can put a lot more into one of those chips. So if we had a double-sided SSD today, that would probably be 4 terabytes instead of 1. Well, I'm thinking about it. Let me take a look at my inventory. I'm pretty sure I have a few of those 970s.
It has never been opened?
It's never been opened, so that's just the way they built it?
That is correct.
Wow. Do you think at that price they would have taken more care?
I agree.
Well, that's all right. Look at what I have here, a brand new Samsung 970 EVO. And we're going to need 2 of these, aren't we?
Yes.
Okay. So there's 1, there's 2. These are 2 terabytes each. I'm sorry, guys, I'm off camera looking at inventory. And with regards to RAM, what do I have? DDR5? No. DDR4, 32 gig. That's DDR4, right? Does that say DDR4?
DDR4. Yep, there is. This is perfect.
Okay. What is this? 8 gig times 2. That's only 16. What is this? 3200 speed. Oh, this is probably. I don't know what this is.
Want me to look at it?
Yeah, what does. Well, according to the. I wrote on it with a Sharpie. It says 8 gigs times 2. So this is older RAM I removed from other systems. I think we're good with what we have, though.
Yeah.
Oops. Just knocked my microphone loose. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was looking for any like used parts I had laying around for this used laptop, but I guess we'll use new parts because let's face it, the Gen 3 NVMe drives, brand new, are super cheap these days. and RAM for DDR4 is super cheap. So we've got some T-Create 32 gig, 3200 megahertz. Remember, this is 2133. We're a lot faster. This is still going to run at 2133. It's fine. And then our two Samsung 970 EVO Plus 2 terabyte drives, which will go in the NVMe slots for later. Let me just take a quick look in the chat, since I've been rudely ignoring you guys, as I've been focused on what I'm doing here. And let's see. What is the cable for? Are you referring to the cable on the drive? This is what provides the drive power and provides the drive the data input output to load and read your, save and read your data. It's all done all through one cable. Both power and data are carried from the drive through this cable into the motherboard so that you can access it. Now, on an NVMe drive, you have this edge connector that plugs straight in, and that carries the power and data in that connector, so you don't have to deal with cables. There's our friend John Jack Wilson's joining us there in the chat. He says he's got to do some errands, have to do some issues with this channel. Sorry, John, I just noticed you're in here. It's good to see you, my friend. Don't know what the issues are. John Wilson says, if this is live, why are we seeing commercials? Oh, so the reason the ads play is that this is not a members only video. When we do members only videos, we don't put ads in them. And when we do videos free for the public, the only way we get paid is if we have some ads play. I don't have any control over that. I can turn ads off or turn ads on, but I can't specify what ads play, how many play, or at what time. This is all on YouTube's control, and I am completely oblivious to it. Unfortunately, if you stick with the members only videos, you won't see any ads in those because the members are paying for those. And then the public content that we make, for free for the available public, the only way that can be paid for, unfortunately, is either through a sponsorship with a large corporation that will tell me what I'm allowed to say, how to say it, and they have to approve it before I show it to you, which means we can't go live anymore. Or we have to air ads. Or everybody has to have like a premium, like if you have a premium YouTube subscription, like let's say you're not a member, but you own a monthly subscription to YouTube, which is not the TV, because that's expensive. That's like $85 a month. But just YouTube Premium removes the ads for like $12 a month. So either being YouTube Premium avoids the ads, or watching only the members only videos avoids the ads. But you have to consider, how are we paying for these videos? And on the members only videos, that's pretty obvious. It's all paid for by the members. On the public videos, we are more prone to being attacked. We're more prone to being harassed. We're more prone to being stalked. And we're also more, there's more cost involved. Ironically, because of the people that make it discouraging for free content want to ruin it for everybody else. It's like if they set something on fire, they like watching it burn. Well, people are in distress in California. These people are laughing and think it's hilarious entertainment. So because we live in a world like that, this is sort of where we're at in society, unfortunately. So I'm sorry if the commercials, you find those annoying. If you get YouTube Premium, you won't have to deal with it. Or if you just join our members only content, you won't see ads there either. But we certainly love seeing you here, John. And we'll look forward, I hope, we'll see you again in another live video chat room. So again, I just want to look through any comments before we pick up where we left off here. Johannes says there's probably a lot of dust in that machine. Well, I mean, it's Phoenix. It's pretty normal for a machine of this age to be dusty. I'll be disappointed if there isn't, because that means those temps are, there's not much we can do about it. But I suspect we're seeing temps because exactly what you said. There's probably a lot of dust in here, specifically around the fans and heat sinks. The dust in here doesn't matter. It's the dust where you see all these vents. This is where it's bringing everything in, and this is where it's blowing everything out. This is the area we're going to focus on to make sure we're clean of any dust and debris. And hopefully we'll find some, because if we do, you're going to notice a significant temperature drop. Douglas Burchell renewed membership. He's now a member for 18 months. He says, great to see you, Admar. Made it back safely. Yeah, thank you. And then, oh, I see where Jack Wilson there joined us from South Texas. It's been a while since we've seen him in the live chat, so good to see you again. John Lewis, I believe, joins us from Brazil. Always good to see our friend John Lewis there. Paul Kitching saying hello. There's Michael Brown saying hello. I'm going back a little ways to see some of the earlier messages I have not seen until just now, looking up. I've had my head down in this. Let's see. Eddie Casanova joins us and says hello. Got Game OTR with a $5 super chat says, hello, I have a water damaged motherboard. It's an Alienware 17R5. Would it be cheaper to fix it or buy a new gaming laptop that would run AAA games? Well, you know, it's really hard to say without seeing it. In general, and I'm not sure how old an i7R5 is. This is the 17R5. This is the 17R3. So presumably yours is a little newer. The latest AAA games, it's probably going to struggle with anyway if it's a few years old. When you're buying something really expensive, I would recommend buying an extended warranty. But once your extended warranty runs out, so that's going to be, you know, 2 or 3 years after you buy the machine, then it's often, you know, with the evolution pace of new technology, of modern technology, it's often more expensive to have it fixed unless it's worth a lot of money still years later. So Apple products, they tend to cost a lot more money. And so the repair cost, even though it's high, is a fraction of what it costs to replace. When it comes to a 17R5, let's take a quick look at what year that came out. It looks like that machine came out in 2018. So you're looking at about an 7-year-old, say a 7-year-old machine. And it looks like maybe the latest BIOS also was 2018, according to this information, which may or may not be accurate. If you know somebody in the business of repair that can repair it for you, it may be worthwhile, assuming they get the repair right the first time. There's a YouTube channel called Northridge Fix. You might reach out to them because they do board level repair and see what their estimate would be. Whether or not it's worth fixing is really something only you can define. If I'm selling items here of various value, which one will you buy? Will you buy the $500 diamond, the $5,000 diamond, or will you buy the $15,000 diamond? There's what you want, and there's what you can have, or what you can afford. And I don't know either of those things for each individual watching the show. And since I don't do board level repair, because it's often, first of all, I don't want to. Let's just clear that. I don't want to do that work. The tools and investment are required to do that kind of work with air soldering and digital microscopes is something that I don't have the patience for. And I want to help more people. I don't just want to help one person. I want to help as many people as quickly, the faster I can help somebody, the sooner I can help the next person. So I'm sort of like a McDonald's of computer repair. I want to get you in and out quickly with a consistent product and quality that's not expensive. It's not, I wouldn't call it super cheap either, but I tend to be far less expensive than my competitors. That's just how it is. However, whether or not something's expensive or cheap or is quick or takes long depends on your individual perspective. So without any point of reference with regards to what you think is expensive or how long you're willing to pay for shipping and wait to get it back and hope it's fixed right the first time that you're not sending it back again, versus just going and buying a new machine, since it's already 7 years old, you're at that point. You could have a brand new machine with a brand new warranty that's guaranteed to work, that you could have right now with no waiting and no wondering, is it going to be working or not? With the peace of mind that there's a warranty on it and you've upgraded your processor, your RAM, your storage, your screen, your video card, all that will be updated. Is that worth the extra money based on what the repair is going to cost, the amount of time, versus an instant solution available to you today, is really only something that you can answer. But if you need a starting point, like an estimate of time and money to repair what's wrong, I would contact preferably someone local that's reputable, depending on where you live. And if there is no one local to where you live that you're aware of, or they're reputable, YouTube has a number of repairs, repair centers that do videos as well, like Parts People. Parts People do only Dells. You might want to reach out to them, see what their estimate is. Northridge Fix is another YouTube channel that does repairs and films them. You might want to reach out to them. This is assuming you're in the United States. If you're located in another country, yeah, a Google search, or maybe asking friends or family where they go if they've got any experience with that kind of repair. So thank you for the question and your contribution. Dean in the chat wants to know, Carey, I saw in one of your videos it's better to run a PC 24/7 than to turn it off. And do you run your computers 24/7? Yes. Understand that I'm in the world of business. I'm not in the world of consumers. Consumers consume. Businesses make the things you guys as consumers buy. Right? There's the people who make the things and there's the people who buy the things. In general, with few exceptions, those watching YouTube videos are the people who are buying things. Generally speaking, the people who are creating things aren't making YouTube videos, at least as far as corporations go. Maybe some Etsy hobbyists or enthusiasts may make some items or have some merch or things that they 3D print, but we're not talking scale. So when I'm telling people to leave their computers on 24/7, I'm speaking to how businesses run, and that because businesses have so much at stake, whether it's the livelihood of their employees, the benefit to their customers, a business wants to die. If left ignored for a very short period of time, a business without constant support, and I mean like life support, it will not generally run on its own. It needs, every day, it needs CPR. Every single day. And we're trying to keep the business up with reduced cost and reliability so everybody can get to work, so that they can increase their profits, have happy customers, and be able to grow as a business and hire more employees. For me to offer that to my business clients, I need to be able to have access to their computers after hours so that I can do updates, virus scans. I don't want to interrupt their employees' productivity. Also, most computer problems happen at startup. I don't know if you've realized that or not, but a lot of people, and I learned this early in my business, Monday morning was the day I got all my calls, generally. Like Monday's the busiest day of the week. If somebody turns their computer off on Friday and they come back on Monday and they turn it on, that's when they have a problem. We generally let the computers turn the monitors off, right? We have the monitors go to sleep, but we do not use a hibernate. We do not use a standby. We could use wake on LAN, but I don't do that. The machines are so low power when they're idling. We just let them idle and we leave them on 24/7. And I encourage them to restart their computers once a week just to clear out memory leaks. There is no right or wrong answer here. If you want to turn your computer on and off, feel free. If you have 100 computers in an office and you're going to flip every computer off and on every night, you're going to have problems, and they're multiplied times 100 between what you have. So when you're asking me, how much shrimp should I buy at the grocery store? I don't know what your appetite is. But if you're going to buy enough shrimp to feed 100 people, we've got scale to look at, the size and the scope of it. So we've got to evaluate cost, we've got to evaluate waste, we've got to evaluate safety. And so those decisions that are made with so much at stake are nothing compared to an individual's decision that really doesn't matter. There is no right or wrong answer other than you are the sole person responsible for the decisions you make. If you hire me and I am now responsible for your computer equipment, we're going to leave it on 100% of the time. But what you choose to do is what's right for you. And what I choose to do is what's right for me. There is no clear one way is better than the other. It's just what risk and reward are you willing to throw down on the table versus what risk and reward am I willing to throw down on a table. And I have a business to risk losing. You have the inconvenience. That's all. And so what I want you to understand, and the reason why I make my videos, is more videos in tech on YouTube are by enthusiasts that only consider an individual in a bubble. But yet the world does not exist that way. The world exists off business. Without business, you would not have the computer you have. You would not have the internet connection you have. You would not have the money to buy any of this. This all happens through businesses. So at the end of the day, if you're in business, you want to be in business with another business. At some point, every business works with another business. Amazon is not making all their money selling consumers' products. That is not where Amazon makes their money. Amazon makes their money with AWS, or Amazon Web Services, that is primarily purchased by other businesses and makes multiple times more money every year than the odds and ends Amazon sells to consumers. But consumers are generally blissfully unaware of this. I'll take my business somewhere else. You've upset me. Who cares? Who cares? Now, if you're Hertz rental car and you're ordering 10,000 cars from Ford to put in your rental fleet and you're pissed off and you tell Ford, I'm going to take my business elsewhere, oh, you've got their attention. But if you're some random shopper and you feel like you're entitled to getting a certain level of service at the cheapest possible prices, you know what? We don't have time for this, right? That's the attitude of the corporation. We've got a lot of other people behind you trying to make purchases. You're getting in the way. Please take your business somewhere else. So there's very different attitudes depending on what side of that counter you're standing on. And I'm not going to say it's right or it's wrong, but I'm encouraging you to be self-aware and understand the motivations from the people behind the counter are very different than the motivations from the people on the other side of the counter. Neither one's wrong, and they all have their reasoning. But I can assure you, if you spend, like, if you go to a department store and buy a jacket, the level of customer service is going to be very different than if you go to a custom tailor at a name brand fashion designer and have a custom made jacket where you're going to be measured and tailored. It's going to be made of better material. You're going to spend a lot more money. They're going to know your name personally, and they want to guarantee that you're a happy customer so you'll come back again. But if they only made 25 cents on your sale of whatever they sold you and some cheap thing that they were bargaining on price on, competing with others, they don't miss you when you're gone. So what? So if you're not adding value to the business, but you think the business is going to kiss your butt, you're in for a lifetime of disappointment. But I've gone off track here. Leaving a machine on or leaving it off is really entirely up to you. There are people that live in other countries where electricity is very expensive. I've never lived there. I don't know. I can only tell you the reasoning why, as a business here in America, with our costs and the services that I offer, I always leave machines on 24/7, and yes, including my own. Thank goodness I do, because while I'm traveling, I'm able to remote access into my main machines regardless of the speed of my Wi-Fi, and have the speed of my and security of my internet connection at home while I travel completely encrypted without any need for a VPN, which is another scam. Except for businesses, VPNs protecting your data need to use a VPN. You don't need that. That's just a ridiculous supplement that they're selling you, in my opinion. So in any event, I appreciate your question. And it's just one of those answers that the answer is yes or no, depending on your particular perspective. You do what's right for you. Should you put your left shoe on first or your right shoe on first? Should you get your hair cut this way or that way or not at all? These are all for you to decide. There's no wrong answers here. Not in that regard. People are looking for absolutes, and there's very rarely an absolute. Sometimes we have deterrents, right? Like a burglar alarm may not prevent all thefts, but it's a deterrent to theft. But if what you're looking for is an absolute, there's very few of those in the world today. At least in the world I live in, there's always pros and cons. There's always solutions that also have some consequence. And then you have to weigh risk, cost versus benefit and make the decision that's right for you. So I'm just trying to provide the information, not provide the answers, because it's impossible for me to know your preferences and your values. But I can provide you the information, so then you can do that determination based on your preferences, values, and risk. You might be risk averse, or you might be somebody who enjoys risk. You might be cost conscious. You might not be. You might care more about, let me make sure I get good customer service even if I pay more for it, so I don't have to deal with it. Or you might be, I don't have that option. I need something as cheap and reliable as possible. So I give you all this information so that you can make the decision that's right just for you and nobody else, just you. Phil Stodd said, I see ice on the bay when I came home in the afternoon. Where's Phil? Is he in Washington? Ron Barnich renews membership, now a member for 29 months. He says, time is flying by. Isn't that a good thing? I think it's a good thing. Can you imagine? You just wake up in your cell and you have a calendar on the wall and you mark a big X, Saturday. What a way to go through life. If time is flying, that's a good thing, I think. That means your life is good. Frederick says, please let me know your thoughts about Dell. There's nothing wrong with Dell. They're one of the biggest manufacturers of what we call system integrators in the world. I want to show you something here on, let's just Google this. Let me bring up the screen capture here. Let's go, is it this window here? There it is. So let's take a look at how many computers did Dell sell in 2024. Now, would anybody like to take a guess? It sold approximately 10 million. Now, this is not including what they sold in 2023. This does not include what HP or Samsung sold. This is just one company. Now, how many of those computers do you think were purchased by consumers? And how many of those 10 million do you think were purchased by businesses? And which one do you think Dell cares most about? In 1 year, they've sold approximately just under 1 million computers every single month. That's going to keep your employees pretty busy, don't you think? Now, compared to HP, well, let's just do it all overall. How many computers? Oh yeah, let's change it to HP first, because those are your two big ones. Sometimes Dell sells more than HP, sometimes HP sells more than Dell. It looks like HP outsold Dell in 2024 with 13.57 million units. That's over 1 million units a month from HP alone. This is worldwide, right? This is not just in the USA. Combined between Dell and HP, they sold 23.5 million computers, which is approximately 2 million computers every month, which is approximately, I don't know, what is that divided by 30? 60,000 computers a day? I can't even do the math on that. Let's just round it to 24 million divided by 365. Let's just say they're open every day, 24/7, which they may not be. That is, oh, that's pretty close with my 65,753 computers a day. So, bearing that in mind, there's a lot of Dells, and we're just going to focus on Dell and HP for right now to make a point. If 1/2 of those computers are bad, what is, regardless if it's Dell or HP, what is 1% of 24 million? And that would be two. I'm missing a zero somewhere. 2.4 million would be 10%. So 240,000, 250,000 would be 1. And if we cut that in half again to just 0.5%, it'd be 120,000 computers that need repair in 1 year, or approximately per month, 120,000 in a year would be about 1,000. It'd be 10,000 a month. That's 0.5%. If they require 0.5%, you understand where scale plays into all of this. So you might have a bad HP or a bad Dell, but what are the odds? See what I'm saying? When it comes to businesses, businesses need to have as much of the same computer as possible. So if you're Intel, if you're your local power or water utility that provides the services to your home, if you're your internet service provider, you need banks and banks and banks of computers that all need to be the same in order to reduce the support cost from your IT department. We don't need to have 15 different power supplies in inventory depending on which computer you got. So when they order computers, they order them by the thousands. And when I say they, I'm referring to anybody who goes to work. When you go to work, there's probably a computer there, and there's a good chance it's made by Dell, HP, Lenovo, one of the big brands. And they're all going to be the same, with the exception of maybe some servers or specialty operations of the company. The vast majority will be replaced every 3 to 5 years. We'll say 4 years on average. And when they're replaced hundreds or thousands at a time. That's where the money is. Now, for consumers, the stuff they're selling consumers is much cheaper. It's built to a cheaper standard because consumers are more or less not caring what they buy as long as it's cheap. If people cared about what they were buying, there wouldn't be as many McDonald's as there were. People will go there because it's inexpensive. They don't go there because it's good for them. People, generally speaking, consumers, will in general buy the cheapest, most unhealthiest thing and cause themselves personal damage because they got a good deal. Just take any buffet. Why do people go to buffets? You're definitely not going for your health. You want to get as much food as possible to get your money's worth, even if it means it's going to cause you a heart attack because you do it all the time and you're eating way too much meat or something that's causing cholesterol. And now, for all that money you saved, you need $150,000 open heart surgery. Great deal. But this is your typical consumer. Dell and HP, they know this. So they will cut corners on consumer PCs that make them unrepairable, unupgradable, and can oftentimes be a complete illusion to what's really inside the machine. For example, we looked at an HP that had a little disposable motherboard in it, but it was put in a regular mid-tower case. And the only clue it was different was it used a laptop-style brick power supply, where normally a case that size would have a power supply in it. And in doing so, they've limited any ability for you to add anything because that little brick power supply, which you typically see on a laptop or a mini PC, can only provide so much power to what's in there. So when this thing burns out of warranty, it is e-waste. And you know why it was sold? Because it was cheap, and that's what people bought. They didn't understand what they were buying. They only understood what they were spending. And it doesn't matter if they have to buy another one in 2 years. They'll look for another great deal. This is not how businesses work. A business has to make an investment that has a return on that investment as much as possible. And they need to make sure the computers they buy are easily serviceable, so they're not paying all kinds of money to their IT department to do a 5-minute job that takes specialty tools, specialty parts that they can't get that take an hour to do what should take 5 minutes. So business level HP and Dell equipment can often be worked on very quickly, oftentimes without tools. They're more expandable. They're built like a tank, not cheap crap overall, generally speaking. And that is usually not sold to consumers. You can buy off-lease business computers, and they are a different world. What the consumers are being sold, from my perspective as a tech, is the cheap dog food bag. You know, give me the leftovers. You're getting the leftovers. You're not getting the meat of it. So, well, there are some exceptions to this. When we're talking about Dell and HP, they are going to be very cost conscious on the consumer side, and they're going to be very quality conscious on the business side, because businesses are ordering hundreds or thousands at a time. Consumer may just buy a computer once every couple of years, and the sooner they can get that customer back to buy another one, the better for them. So you buy your $300 computer at Best Buy, and you'll be back to buy another one in a couple of years statistically. You'll have to. You buy a good business quality machine for $800, $900, you likely won't need to replace that computer for 10 years. Which one's actually saving you money? Not to mention the stress, time, and frustration. And that's business mindset versus consumer mindset. There's always some exceptions, but that's generally how it all works. So overall, Dells are wonderful. HPs are wonderful. But for consumers, they might also be wonderful if that's all you can afford and that's what you're looking for. There are some exceptions on the consumer models that Dell and HP make. Once you reach a certain price point, they do generally get better. HP makes a line of laptops I'm quite impressed with. I can't remember what they're called. Lenovo was making a line of laptops there for consumers that were quite good. But if you can get an off-lease business machine, whether it's a laptop or a desktop, you can save a lot of money and get something that's very serviceable and very well built. So there is, again, no absolute here. It depends on which market you're looking. On the consumer market, I don't recommend the Dells, although I've been happy with the Dell XPS line of both desktops and laptops. When it comes to a desktop, I'd rather build one. But, you know, as a consumer that wouldn't build a computer just going to the store and buying one, you've got these companies like Dell and HP that are going to be there for your warranty. They may not be there for what you define as support, because a lot of customers are looking for tutoring. And companies, they're not your tutor. If you don't know how to do something, it's not their job to teach you. If you buy a piano from a piano store, Unless they say it includes lessons, you're expected to understand what you're buying and how to use it. So to buy a piano, and I don't care what it costs you, buy a grand piano, buy a big Yamaha, whatever, and you take it home and you plonk down on the keys, and it's like, this thing sounds terrible. That's because you don't know how to play. That's not a support call. Companies are fed up with it. So some people say, well, the support sucks. No, it doesn't. If you actually have a problem, the support's actually pretty good usually. And when I say support, I'm not talking about being over the phone. I'm talking about being able to send a computer in for repair, not to teach you how to use it. And when you're buying a computer from a company you've never heard of, from AliExpress, you don't even get that. It's basically buying from a garage sale. You're on your own. If that kind of support, remember, I'm not talking about technical support. Technical support is not the same as support. This is so obvious to me, I'm laughing because so many people only think of support for computers as technical support. I'm talking about having a phone number or an email address that you can easily find, that you can reach out to the manufacturer and set up an RMA, return merchandise authorization, for a repair. So many cheap companies, no-name brand companies out of Asia don't offer that at all. But you will get that from Lenovo and HP and Dell. That's the kind of support. When I say support, that's what I'm talking about. Big miscommunication on the internet regarding what support is. Tech support is a whole nother thing, and people conflate it with tutoring. Every day, all the time. So, again, from a technician's perspective, support is think of other areas of your life where you need support. There's emotional support. There's people who believe in you. You know, you can do it. There's people who will be there for you, even if it's a company, if you have a problem. Okay? If you have a problem with the product. So a product with the product means a defect in manufacturing or workmanship. Not, I don't understand how to make it do this. That's a tutoring problem. Tutoring is not support. Okay. By the way, with the internet being available to everybody, with basically the entire history of mankind's knowledge available at your fingertips, there's no reason that I can come up with that you wouldn't just simply help yourself. But to each their own. If you pay enough money, you can get whatever sort of butler or private assistant that you want to pay for. But if you think that's built into the cost of what you're paying for, I would expect you paid a lot of money for that. You weren't finding the cheapest price. The example I give is Rolls-Royce. There are no colors Rolls-Royce offers their cars in. Rolls-Royce says, what color do you want? If you say, what do you have? They say everything. You go, well, what's this color called? They'll say, whatever you name it, it's your color. When you pick it, you can trademark it. It's yours. And if another customer wants a Rolls-Royce, we'll give you royalties to that color. Or we can deny that. We could say, well, that you have to get permission. That's this person's color. You will make that color, and Rolls-Royce will then make that car that color. You cannot buy it in white or black in the sense that it's not offered. You can say, I want this shade of white or this shade of black, and Rolls-Royce says, what would you like to name your color? No two cars are the same, unless somebody wants somebody else's color and gets their permission to use it. Now, you want that, but you also only want to pay 10 grand for it? No, you don't get that kind of service at Chevy, Ford, Toyota, or Nissan. Not even Acura or Lexus. You have to go a whole nother level up if that's what you're expecting. But it's available. If you want it, you can get that kind of service if you're willing to pay for it. It does exist. Michael O'Binions contributed $2 in Super Chat. Thanks, Michael. We're going on about 2.5 hours of today's broadcast, and I have at least another 2 hours of work to do on this. And one of the things that, as I mentioned before, is more important to me than showing how to replace a battery. Honestly, you can go on YouTube and you can find, this has already been done years ago by people. Not by me, I've never done it before. I enjoy interacting with each and every one of you. I enjoy your questions, and I enjoy taking the time to clarify what I consider to be great misunderstandings on the internet that are continually propagated, in my opinion, irresponsibly by content creators who have no sort of consequences to the words they speak. They're not held accountable. And as a result, many people will do things the hard way or spend money they don't need to spend, and it kills me. Oh, why did you do that? You could have avoided it. And so I'm trying in my way. The goal isn't to make you feel dumb. The goal is to help you understand the reasoning behind decisions people make to determine if that's the right decision for you. Because again, looking for absolutes where it's always this way or it's always that way in any aspect of life is pretty rare. We're individuals, and I celebrate that, and I encourage you to be an individual. But it's very difficult to understand what decision to make if you don't understand what's the risk, what's the cost, and what's the benefit. And you have to weigh that yourself based on your values to determine the right answer for you and only for you. So the only way I can make a worldwide video that applies to everyone equally is to give everyone the knowledge and the tools. But what you use the knowledge for and how you use those tools is for each of you to decide on your own. And in that way, that's my proof that I'm not saying you're dumb. I'm saying you are capable. If you had the information, you would be able to make these decisions with confidence, knowing you were not wasting your money, with a proper, reasonable expectation of the result, understanding what the potential risks are, so that everything works out. Either way, you're happy. That's my goal. Sometimes even that gets misunderstood. James Goodrum with a $1 super chat. Right on. Thank you, James. Let me see if I missed any other contributions since I haven't been paying attention. I'm going to go back through everything. David Graham earlier with a $2 super chat. Our friend Buster with a £10 super chat and renewing membership. Charlie Purdy with a $20 super chat. 3D Everything renewed his membership, as well as Alaj Depej. Our friend Mark Gaines in Northern Ireland with a $20 super chat. Douglas Burchell also renewed membership, as did Ron Barnish. Got Game OTR with a $5 super chat. And Michael O'Banion and James Goodrum with super chats. Thank you, you guys. Let's take any other questions for right now, and maybe just pick this up tomorrow, because at a certain point, while I am stubborn and want to get something done, as people tire, the information doesn't sink in the same, and I'm better off breaking it into a separate video, not only for my own clarity, right, and fresh eyes, but also so I'm not wearing out the viewer, which I'm aware I do, because not everybody can keep up with me. I'm totally into this, if you can't tell. And I share my enthusiasm and my passion for my career with the audience to share real world experience, but I've got 30 plus years of it, and I can't cram it all into a 2-hour video, or in this case, what'll probably be a 3-hour video. And while I'm doing that and working at the same time, it makes the process very slow. On the other hand, I could selfishly take this apart off camera and not share it with you at all. So it's important for me that you guys share not just the words I speak, but the actions that I do live unscripted on camera to prove that what the justification behind the words I say. So I'm not all talk. We have visual, live, unedited evidence to verify the accuracy of the information and the reasoning behind the information. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but you can't deny it's real. And it's a philosophy a lot of times that I'm sharing that works for me. I'm hoping it'll work for you, but you may have a philosophy that works just fine for you now. I'm not here to change that. Frederick wants to know about CPUs degrading from Intel. So there are, as I mentioned earlier and many times throughout the video, technology moves very quickly. And a lot of issues that were an issue in the past are no longer an issue today. Intel CPU degradation was a result of overvolting caused by motherboard manufacturers that claim that Intel told them it was okay to do. And Intel said, it's not okay to do. You didn't follow our instructions. They say, yes, we did, and you're backtracking now to make us look bad, and you're throwing us under the bus. And there's a big fight between Intel and the motherboard manufacturers, but the end result of it is all of that's taken care of, and it's in the past. It no longer applies. If this was April, and see, you don't have to go very far for everything to change. If this was April of 2024, we'd be talking about this problem. But now, in January of 2025, this problem no longer exists. It's already been addressed, it is put to bed, and it's been resolved. Now, anybody who has a CPU that has been damaged, regardless of the reason why, Intel has extended their warranty to a full 5 years worldwide. That's how strongly Intel believes in their product. And they want your confidence as a customer to know, we got your back, regardless of who's to blame. It's been fixed. Make sure you have the latest BIOS update, and should you ever have any problem with that CPU in 5 years since you bought it, Intel will replace it free of cost. So there you go. If you're going to overclock a chip, be it whether it's AMD or Intel, if you're going to overvolt it or overclock it, you will be degrading that chip. But I think that's common knowledge. I mean, if you're doing overvolting or overclocking, you've got to know you're killing your chip. You've got to. Chris in the chat wants to know, does liquid metal need to be reapplied? Does it dry out? My laptop has it, and I prefer not to have to touch it. Liquid metal will oxidize over time, especially if it wasn't applied correctly, if it was something you did yourself. When liquid metal is applied mechanically by a precision machine, like robotics, then it's meant to stay on for life and should never be removed. In general, thermal compound should never be removed either. It is on for life of the machine. That's it. You're going to see a lot of enthusiasts, content creators, encouraging you to do this, recommending different thermal pastes. It's all nonsense. This doesn't happen in the real world of IT. We do not. I would encourage you, if you're truly curious, get a job in corporate IT, and then let me know how many times you change thermal compound or liquid metal or any other thermal material in any computer in any office, regardless of how old the computers are. It's simply not done. And it's not done because it's entirely unnecessary. It's simply an enthusiast activity that encourages people to do work they don't need to do, to spend money they don't need to spend, to solve problems they don't have and likely wouldn't have, but might now have problems as a result of doing it. So whether it's liquid metal or thermal compound, it should never, ever, ever be changed. There are always some exceptions. Again, we do not live in a world of absolutes. But the way the internet talks, you'd think everybody's having heat-related problems. You know how many computers I have fixed with heat-related problems in the last 30 years? In the real world, the real, actual working world, where computers running affect a company's ability to keep their employees employed and keep their customers coming back? I don't even know. 3, maybe? 6 in 30 years? 6 out of literally tens of thousands of computers that I have either built or repaired or upgraded in 30 years, 34 years. Yikes. But on the internet, oh my gosh, you think everybody's having this problem. The only people that should be having heat-related problems are people that are overclocking or people who built their computer wrong. In other words, they did not apply the heatsink correctly, or they bought an underpowered heatsink for a higher powered CPU. They didn't match the parts well. But that mistake is on the user's error. It's not on the parts. These problems should not exist. And yet, on the internet, you think that everybody had these. This is such a common problem. It is not. It's only common in the imaginations of the people online. Very few people have ever encountered an actual overheating problem who didn't themselves cause it through overclocking, overvolting, or installing the wrong cooler or installing the cooler inappropriately. There's always some exceptions, but not enough to justify all of the discussion and content that exists online. It only exists online. Go get a job interview at a corporate IT job and find out how often you're going to be doing that. 0. You'll never do it. Never. That's how rare it is in the business world. Never. They'll give you tools when you get a job in corporate IT. They'll give you a screwdriver. They might give you a laptop or something to take notes on. You know what they won't give you? And you know what they likely don't even have anywhere in the IT department? Thermal paste. It's simply not done because it doesn't need to be. It's just an internet thing. It's a weird phenomenon. Michael wants to know if I think a bad graphics card can cause screen pixelation. A lot of things can cause screen pixelation. A bad cable, a cable that's not plugged in all the way, a bad connector that the cable plugs into, not enough power going to the monitor or to the graphics card. It could be the graphics card starting to fail. It could be a cold solder joint on the graphics card. It could be an older driver that needs to be replaced, although not likely, it is possible. And depending on the age of the video card, the age of the cable, and the age of the monitor, probably the oldest thing is the one causing the problem. At least that's where I'd start. Mecca Cameron says, I hope I can catch him working on an Asus live one day. Are you referring to an Asus laptop? Because we just literally built the Asus ProArt, which Mara is raving about how wonderful it is. Again, Asus is not paying us. I'm here to tell you straight up as a tech. The Asus ProArt Z890 that we put together with the Core Ultra 9 Intel CPU, holy cow, is that thing fast. And you can't even tell it's on. It's so quiet. It runs super cool. You don't even hear the fans, and yet that thing, it can run. We ran Cinebench on it. I don't think it broke 80 degrees. I think it was still in the 70s. It's a whole nother level. It's also quite expensive, and it's physically very large. And I'm so glad we put wheels on it. I don't want to have to lift it. But wow. So we've worked on a lot of Asus products. We've worked on some Asus mini PCs. It's been a while since we've seen an Asus laptop, but we'll see. What I encourage people to do, if there's anything you want to see us work on, is if you have something that you need worked on, reach out to us. Our email address couldn't be any easier. Everybody's always welcome to email us at any time. And sometimes people want to ask us personal questions. How much would you charge for this? Hey, that's between you and me, right? Because I don't know what you're expecting and what's involved. And I don't want to just have some public outcry about their interpretation of what you need versus my interpretation of what you need, because they're not the ones doing the work. So these conversations need to happen in private so that there is no distraction from the information I'm providing you, and that you're not being manipulated by the audience one way or the other. Yeah, you should send it to them. It's a good deal. No, you shouldn't. It's a bad deal. You don't need all that nonsense in your life. You're a grown adult and you can make a decision. So reach out to us for any private information regarding, or personal. I've got a computer. Is this something you can help me with? We'll talk about, is it something worth fixing? Is it worth the cost of shipping? If you're in the Phoenix, Arizona area, it's much cheaper. The shipping companies are making more than I am. So depending on what you've got, laptops and mini PCs are much more inexpensive and less likely for damage and shipping than, say, a big heavy desktop. And so for these kind of discussions, we encourage you to reach out to us and ask, and we'll be happy, more than happy, to respond to you. Be sure and check your spam folder. If you haven't received a response from us within 24 hours, it's likely we never got your message. Most of the reason why we don't get your message is because you didn't spell the email address correctly. So always double check your spelling. And of course, after a couple of attempts, if you're not getting responses and you're checking your spam folder, join us in a live and let us know. That very rarely ever happens, but do let us know, hey, I'm trying to reach you. And we can figure out why your message isn't getting through when everybody else's is. But there it is, right there, showcasecreate@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And if there's, hey, I'd like to see you work on an ASUS laptop. Why? Because I have one. What's wrong with it? Well, I need to do this or that. Well, maybe we can do it for you. Kill two birds with one stone. Have you send the laptop to us. We'll do the work. You get the video. We get the content. You get the laptop back. Everybody's happy. Hey, I'm open to your ideas. Bill Stodd says, what you were saying about heat issues can be applied to what type of compound you use. Not in my experience, Phil, they're all pretty much the same. The compound, when we're talking about thermal compound, one of the big misconceptions is that one will transfer heat better than another. And while that may be true at a critical technical minutia level, it isn't really true in a normal human reality level that is any way other than negligible in regards to temperature differences along with room temperature differences that result in a plus or minus negative or positive 3 degrees. So in that sense, they're all the same. Where an expensive thermal compound is beneficial is in the longevity, how it ages. So if you get thermal grizzly, which is one of the most expensive thermal compounds you can buy, I hope you don't plan on taking it off anytime soon, or you've defeated the reason why you put it on. It's not that it's transferring the heat any better, because it isn't, at least not by enough to make it worth any extra money. But what it is going to do, or what it's supposed to do, is stay in a moist condition for a longer period of time rather than drying and cracking the way a cheaper thermal compound typically does. But whether or not the thermal compound is moist or dry generally refers more to the difficulty in cleaning up the thermal compound and the efficacy, the effectiveness of the thermal compound. So essentially, there's a lot of misunderstanding from the consumers that because there's just not enough experience. When you apply thermal compound to your machine, and then you apply the same thermal compound to your same machine, you're likely going to get two different results because the application won't be the same. But when you apply thermal compound to 10,000 computers, you're going to get much more data back to realize that when we apply the compound of this brand to this large scale of computers, and we apply this thermal compound to this brand of this large scale of computers, meaning, let's say we have 1,000 computers using thermal grizzly, 1,000 computers using Noctua thermal compound, not the coolers, just the compound, and 1,000 computers using the cheapest thermal crap we can find, you will find in 3,000 computers very little difference other than the individual differences between how that thermal compound was applied or the silicon lottery of the chip itself, or that there's an issue with the computer that you didn't realize, whether it's a BIOS setting or a power supply issue that's causing a little bit of the data to come through outside of the norm. But when you have one computer or you have a handful and your experience is that limited, your data is also limited. And then we tend, as humans, we tend to lean into the information we want versus the information that we actually have. And if you don't have enough information, it's impossible to really say for sure. But I can tell you, as somebody who's been there and done that, there's very little actual real difference in thermal compound regarding the heat transfer. That's more on your heat sink, the mounting, and the voltage that the CPU is running at, the TDP. And you might not always apply it the same. That's the other thing. If you're not doing it all the time, you're not that experienced in it. So even when you apply the same thermal compound to the same computer that you did before, you can get very different results because you don't have enough experience and consistency of how you're applying it. If you really care that much about heat, probably better off looking to a better cooler. The thermal compound isn't really there from one thermal compound to another to improve, to lower your temperatures by anything a normal person would care about. Like, it's just an enthusiast activity for people overclocking, looking to get that 1 more degree. Most of us don't give a rat's behind if it's 1 degree hotter or cooler. Only those really extremist individuals care about stuff like that. And they also have pretty extreme wallets to define and defend it. However, in the practical world of, you know, corporations and such, we don't do this work. It's just not done because heat isn't really a problem with computers. It just isn't. But people will fight and defend that there is a problem with heat. And I'm suggesting there's a problem with the person. They're not doing something right, or they're pushing the computer outside of its engineering specification. And then, of course, what do you expect? And when we can correct the individual, we correct the heat problem. Working backwards, correcting a heat problem, there never was a heat problem there if the proper heatsink was installed. If the proper amount of thermal compound, it doesn't matter what kind, was applied correctly. And if the machine is being run at the engineering specifications of voltage. You could even disconnect all your fans except your CPU fan. You're just not going to have heat problems. It just doesn't happen. You have to invite that and create it. You know how I know? I can show you the invoices of the last 30 years. Very few of them ever say anything regarding changing any thermal compound. Again, if I'm changing a cooler, I change the thermal compound with the cooler. But the cooler is going to make the difference, not the thermal compound. Right? Is that clear? Mara says her ProArt computer is the bomb. Well, don't say that. You make it sound like it explodes. Talking about all this heat. Chris says liquid metal was applied by ASUS at the factory. The machine has been fantastic despite it now being a few years old. We repair things that are broken. Okay, so if you have this anxiety, I don't know how to help people with anxiety. I'm not a psychologist and I can't prescribe medication, and I mean it sincerely. The toxic information you're seeing online regarding thermal compounds, liquid metal, it's not helping you. It's toxic. It's poisoning your mind, making you feel as though you are afflicted with an issue, or you might be soon afflicted by an issue if you don't do this. Yet the evidence in reality is that you're not having any problems, but you're being manipulated voluntarily. You are allowing yourself to be manipulated by the content you see in social media and in regular media. And if you want to go through life that way, it's your choice. I would prefer to be as anxiety-free as possible. I don't like stress. So when a customer contacts me, we have to define what the problem is. So for example, if a customer says to me, can you tell me how to do X, Y, and Z? I have learned the hard way that a lot of times the customer does not need to do X, Y, and Z. They're under the impression that's what they need to do, and they're calling me, asking me, how do I do that? And I always have to remind myself to ask the customer, take a step back. Tell me what it is you're trying to accomplish. What's the goal? Well, I'm trying to access a network share. Okay, steps X, Y, and Z have nothing at all to do with that. Now I can help you. If you go to the doctor and you say, doctor, I want this medication, the doctor is not simply going to prescribe it to you. The doctor's going to say, what are your symptoms? When did they start? What allergies do you have? If you changed your diet? We're going to try and find everything possible to not give you that medication. As professional, licensed, educated, degreed medical professionals who are going to be held accountable to anything bad that happens to you as a result of being on said medication that you just told the doctor you wanted. Now the doctor could say, maybe, let me do my job. Let me use all those years and all that money I spent in college and all those patients I've seen today and last week and last month and last year through similar symptoms and behaviors and patterns. Tell me about it. Take advantage of the amount of money that you're paying me to let me do my job. And the doctor may agree with you. Yes, you should be on that. Or the doctor may say, you shouldn't. Or there's something even better. Once we understand what we're trying to cure, what the problem is, then we can offer a solution. But when somebody comes up to me and they think they know the solution, they only want to know how to get there, I have mistakenly taken that bait and wasted hours of my time helping somebody do something that at the end result did not accomplish what they were out for. And then I go, well, wait a minute, that definitely was the steps you were asking for, but you never told me what you were trying to do. Come to find out, what they were trying to do didn't require any of those steps, and we could have been off the phone an hour earlier. So if you're talking to a professional and you're paying for the professional's time, let the professional do their job. You're welcome to give your own theory. Here's what I think. Okay, but then why are you here? It's weird to me that somebody may call for support and then tell me how to do my job. It sounds like you don't need me. What am I on the phone for? Let's save each other some time. When you have a problem you need resolved, I can resolve it for you. Guaranteed, every time. But I have to understand what the problem is. So these people that are convinced they have heat issues, no, they don't. Something's wrong. Something's out of spec. It's not the thermal compound. I mean, unless they didn't put any on, or they put way too much on. If it's from the factory, that should never be separated. Leave it attached. No matter what you see on the internet, you're being lied to. You're being completely lied to. They're showing you what you want to see. That generates clicks and that makes them money. They may actually believe it's true because they saw it somewhere else, so they don't even know they're lying to you. I'm not saying it's always malicious, but it's always irresponsible. In my opinion, I should add that. I would like the same rules to apply to us all. If I'm going to be held accountable for my recommendations and advice, so should everybody else. Why do I have to play by rules that other people don't have to play by? How come other people can get away with stuff that if I tried it, I'd be out of business living on the street? I'm not comfortable making money that way. I'm not comfortable manipulating people to part with their money. Maybe that's why I'll never be rich. It doesn't sit well with me. I want to earn an honest living and help people and save the money and do a great job so they'll want to come back and they're going to want to refer me. And I suppose that is not a millionaire's mentality. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a thing as a pet rock. Chris says Snapdragon laptops are good, but they have a niche use case. I don't know that I agree with that. Every computer, when you define a niche use case, every computer is defined that way. Like this Alienware laptop is a niche use case. The mini PCs are a niche use case. The ProArt Z890 monster build we did is a niche use case. In such a Chromebook, an Apple computer, a Linux operating system, Windows 11 are all unique use case, niche use case. And in that way, Snapdragon's no different. So I would challenge you to take another perspective to hear what you're saying, to realize that you could pretty much say that about anything. A Cadillac SUV is a niche use case versus a Toyota Prius is a niche use case. A Corvette. Anyway, I think I've made my point. It's no different than everything is the same in that everything is different. Everything is unique in terms of the designs of laptops and desktops from Apple to Microsoft, Linux or Android or iOS. We have these choices so we can decide what's right for our particular budgets, lifestyles, etc. And each one of those, it's funny to me because they are niche, but they're common, which is the exact opposite. The best way I could explain it is, if you're growing up and somebody says, you are a unique and different person, you are not like anybody else, and they say that to everybody. So you are unique, just like everybody else. That cracks me up because it's like everybody's the same and that everybody's unique. Okay. I'm very happy with the Snapdragon. Very, very happy with it. I haven't found a piece of software I want to run on it that doesn't run. So, you know, to each their own. Tony's RC says, let me end the stream 3 hours later. I was going to end at 4, right? A 3-hour stream. We started at 1. It's 4 o'clock Phoenix time. But to your point, we are 4 minutes. Oh no, we're 4 minutes over. I do enjoy hanging out with you guys. I'm here for the interaction and the friendship and the camaraderie. And as long as you guys are asking questions and being interactive, I'm not just going to walk away from you. I think it's rude. And if we run long, it's because other people are interacting. And I just think if we're in the middle of a conversation, you and me, and I just abruptly go, well, gotta go, bye. It's pretty rude. It's like some psychologist or something. It's like, well, your time's up. Yeah, but no, sorry, clock on the wall. Nothing I can do. Doesn't feel like a friendship, does it? Mecha Cameron said, did CES wow anyone else, or was it just me? I thought CES was a massive disappointment this year. But every year it seems like it's just less and less. You know, Microsoft, Google, all these companies pulled out years ago. I think they saw the writing on the wall. Computex really remains the only viable computer show, as far as I'm concerned, or tech show that really showcases new and exciting stuff. CES this year was just more big screen TVs, a lot of robotics. Yes, there's always some cool things, but CES used to be mostly cool things and then some weird stuff. And this year it felt like a lot of the same. Look at this robot. Well, look at this robot. Well, look at this robot. Yeah, but we have a robot. Well, our robot looks like a dog. Well, our robot looks like a space Furby. I don't know. A space Furby space chicken. I don't know. But compared to CES of the past, compared to Comdex before that, it's just, yeah, there's a couple things. But is it worth the trip to go and spend all that money and time to see a couple things? I don't think so. I want to see a lot of cool stuff. And, you know, how many big screen TVs do I need? Oh, Samsung's TV now pushes out. Who cares? Really? That's a thing? We're going to... And they show like a shark approaching the screen. And as it approaches the screen bulges out in the center. Okay. Cool. But hey, I'm glad somebody enjoyed it, because I'm glad I didn't go. There's no remorse on my part for not going. Whew, I feel like I dodged a bullet. But yeah, I appreciate the questions and the interaction. Patrick T says he's got an old Intel 10700, even the Intel stock cooler. Usually it can hit around 97 to 98 degrees Celsius when doing simple Windows Defender scan. A newer AMD Ryzen 7 7700X air cooler. Leon Lee LandCool 216 case. The highest he's seeing is 86.9. So Patrick, and I'm just telling you the way it is. I'm not telling you to coddle you. There's something wrong with the computer if it's running 98 degrees Celsius. Something's not right with it. It's not okay. It's something you can fix that has nothing to do with thermal compound. That's pretty much all I can tell you without seeing it. It's not normal. It's not acceptable. And if you choose to live with it that way, that's a choice you're making. But that doesn't mean that that's normal or acceptable or that anybody else with a 10700 has that problem. Do you want to know how I know? I have a 10700 and I can show you on the bench right now. We can run Defender all day, or Windows, what do they call it? Security Center. It doesn't do what yours is doing. So tell me what's different between yours and mine. Something's not right. And it's really up to you to decide to address that or not. But it has nothing to do with Intel or AMD. That is a complete false conclusion. It is completely wrong. The equivalent chip running the equivalent wattage will run at the equivalent heat with an equivalent cooler. It doesn't matter who makes it. It's just physics. James Goodrum says, I enjoy the camaraderie. This is a great community. Agreed. I mean, community's better than the videos for sure. I'll be the first to tell you. Okay, final questions. We're gonna wrap it up for today. Did I put the wrong glasses in here? No, those are the right glasses. These are my magnifiers. These are the ones that warp the world around me unless I'm looking at something close. These are like strapping a magnifying glass to my eyes. We'll pick this up tomorrow. All right, so it's not going to be procrastinated. We'll pick it up tomorrow fresh. Both of us will be fresh. And we'll pick up from the NVMe and the storage. This is the battery in the box. It might be the wrong battery. For all I know, I'm going to open this up, find out the battery's wrong. My preference would be to open it up first and order the battery second to ensure I'm getting the right battery. But every video I saw was pretty consistent. Well, not pretty. They were all consistent with which battery it had. Whether or not I got a good battery from a good manufacturer or it's going to last, I don't know. It's got to be better than what's in there anyway. And if we open this up and the battery is wrong, well, I'm within my return period for Amazon for 30 days, and I'll order the right battery, and we'll leave it disassembled and set aside and come back to it if need be. That's why these videos are live and unscripted, so you can see what really happens in the real world. What I'm hoping for, and I usually, lately you wouldn't think so, but usually I'm pretty dead on with ordering the right parts, everything's fitting correctly, and everything comes apart and goes together the way I expect. I suppose when it doesn't, it makes the video more interesting, even if it's more frustrating for me. The drive will not be going back in, but we'll pull the data off of it. This drive will not be going back in, but we can clone it. These are the drives and the RAM that's going in. Now, the RAM that's in here now can stay in there for now. It doesn't get in the way of disassembly, but we will take it out before, we're going to power on for the first time. We'll take it out and replace it with, well, I got to think about this now. We don't want to change too many components out at once, because if it doesn't turn on for any reason, it could be because I didn't connect one of these little cables, or it could be because something's not seated correctly. So I do try to limit how many things I change at once between power-ons. So I might save the RAM for last because it's so easy. right? I can have this whole thing reassembled except for this back piece, swap the RAM out. If the machine doesn't boot or has any blue screens, I'll know it's the RAM. So we'll postpone that towards the end. These can go in, like I say, we can clone what's on here. We don't clone this, we just copy. Cloning is only for boot drives. Cloning is only for boot drives. Cloning is only for boot drives. Any other drives that are not boot drives, you copy and paste. No rocket science there. No special software needed. It's not that you can't clone a data drive. It's why would you? It's a waste of time. How could I make this more complicated? You've come to the right place. Nubia in the chat wants to know what happened to the Scythe Mugen 5. Do you still use them? The Scythe Mugen 5 is no longer made. It has been replaced with the Mugen 6. If you go on Amazon, you cannot find a Mugen 5 for sale. The Mugen 6 is made in two variants. This one that I'm holding in my hands is the cheaper silver single fan edition. And then they have a black edition that has a fan on each side for about $5 more. And the price on the Mugen 6 is about half what the Mugen 5 used to sell for. There's also competitors in the space that offer an even better value, supposedly, from a company called Thermalright. Now, I've not tested them, but content creators and websites that I respect for having a history of being more or less on the same value system as me have evaluated Thermalright as a very, very aggressively priced product that works well, mounts well. How does it compare? I don't know. I haven't used one. We don't typically use the tower air coolers anymore because a lot of the systems we built throughout 2024 were using liquid coolers more than air coolers. If we're sticking with an air cooler, a lot of times it's for a non-K processor, and the stock cooler is more than enough. Anybody who says a stock cooler is not adequate is doing something to their system that is outside of the engineering specification. Intel and AMD do not include inadequate coolers, so you can burn up your chip to cost them warranty money. It's not how the business works. Some people don't like the stock coolers because they're not very attractive. Different problem. Some people don't like the stock coolers because they're too noisy. Well, that's often adjusted in the BIOS, but hey, to each their own. We've installed liquid coolers not necessarily because of their cooling, but because of their looks. Except when we're dealing with high-end Ryzen 9 and Intel Core i9 processors. In some cases, there's no choice but to use a liquid cooler or some massive Noctua monster that completely defeats the whole point of having a glass window on the side of your case.
Before you close out, check your phone.
Oh, I haven't checked my phone the whole broadcast, have I? Thank you for reminding me. Let me put my Mugen 6 back on the shelf where it collects dust. Nothing wrong with it. No issues or complaints with the Mugen 6. We just haven't had much call to use them. But yeah, Mugen 5s are no longer made. Like a blind man. Where's my phone? All right. Fred Vanderbulen sent $4.90 via PayPal. He says, I'm a lot like you with the things you say. Well, I'm glad we agree, but it's not required. You know, it's nice to have birds of a feather, right? But on the other hand, it can also be very boring. If we don't have contradicting opinions and, you know, what is there to talk about? And furthermore, if we agree, don't get me wrong, it's great, but that doesn't mean we're right. Everybody can agree with me. That doesn't make me any more right. So I think it's important in life that we appreciate people for who they are, not because they think like us. I see the appeal of it and I appreciate it, but it's not important to me. I have a business to run, and what's important to me is that my customers are happy and I can pay my bills, right? And I can't pay my bills because somebody agrees with me, unless that person is a customer. So it's nice that you get what I'm saying and you're on the same page with me, but it is not required or expected. And I appreciate just the fact that you hang around and you're part of this community and your support, because, you know, kindness goes a lot further in my world than anything else. We can, for example, we can disagree kindly, and we can also agree kindly. And that's what I'm going to base how I feel about somebody, more so for me personally. But thank you so much for your kindness. I really appreciate that, and your supportiveness here in the community, and your contribution. I don't want to make light of that at all. I appreciate it. And Charlie Purdy sends us an Amazon gift card. And wow, it's a nice $100 Amazon gift card from our friend Charlie Purdy. He has used this for future content to the community, Carey. Carey and Mara, good to see you back. Well, thank you. It's good to be back and out of the California penitentiary, which is the state of California. That's the way I see it. I also want you to know we've got a already in 2025, Minis Forum has already sent us a brand new mini PC that is, how can I explain this? It's nothing extraordinary in the sense of it's got more power or more features. Why it's worthy of review from my perspective is that it's affordable to your average person, and it is of a mid-range design, meaning it's going to have more power, more storage, and a more aggressive price point than either those really cheap budget machines or those really expensive enthusiast machines. And for that reason, I want to showcase it, because I think it's much more approachable and reachable to the average person, and probably provides more storage and more power than the average person will need, negating any point of the necessity of upgrading it. Even though you can upgrade it as well, I don't think you'll ever need to. Like, if you get a good machine right out of the door, as an average user, you're not playing AAA games, you're not doing some niche high-end, you know, project that most people don't do, but you're going to run Office, you're going to browse the web, maybe you're photo editing, maybe you're doing a little video editing. This is going to do all of that adequately. Where a budget machine would struggle and a high-end machine may be unaffordable, this machine hits right down the middle. And for that reason, when Minis Forum asked me about it, I said, yeah, let's take a look at it, because there's nothing about it that when you look at it makes you think, wow, I got to have it. But when you see the specs and the price, I think you're going to change your mind. At least if you're of the average user with average demands. If you're, again, an extremist, you won't be happy with it. And if you're looking for something for $100, it's obviously out of your price range. But right down that big middle, I think Minis Forum has hit the sweet spot with this. We'll see if you agree. So that has, if you've heard the doorbell earlier, I don't know if the microphone picked it up. That was Amazon delivering our Minis Forum. That was the Minis Forum, right? I'm pretty sure I saw Mara unbox it, or she at least brought the box in. Hold on, let me just walk off camera here, because I'm a little anxious and I want to see it. Hey, Mara, where's the Minis Forum? I know it's here. Where did you put it? Oh, you're making a thumbnail? Aha, a brown box. Just what I wanted. This is actually perfect, because again, it's nothing special to look at. So neither is the packaging. That cracks me up. This literally came in when we were broadcasting, and as you can see, it's just a brown box. But this is the, just to give you a heads up of what's coming. The UN 1250, this is a Core i5 1250p. Not a Core i3, not a Core i7, it's Core i5, 16 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte of SSD, NVMe storage. How much money do you think this costs? And haven't really talked to you about all the USB ports, video outs, how fast the networking is, what the Wi-Fi or Bluetooth is. Think about that. And we're going to revisit that, or revisit this product. We're going to open it, unbox it. We'll do all that live next week. And certainly hope you look forward to joining us on that, as well as getting back here tomorrow, 1 o'clock at the usual start time, to finish our teardown. And thank you guys so much for hanging out. Thank you for all of the interaction. I appreciate your comments, your feedback. Agreeing or disagreeing is not important to me, so long as we are kind to one another, and we can, you know, and as much as I feel like I'm helping, you guys help me back, and I appreciate that reciprocal relationship. It's lovely. Today was a great audience today, and thank you guys so much for making it so pleasurable to be on this end of the camera. As you can tell, I spent a lot more time today talking with you guys than doing this, because that's what I like better. I wonder why. When everybody's nice, it should be pretty obvious, right? So I can't thank you enough for your kindness and your friendship. We have an amazing community, and I thank everybody who's a part of it, and I hope you consider yourself to be a part of it too. We're back live tomorrow at 1 o'clock. My thanks, of course, to Mara for all the work she does behind the scenes, and the thumbnails and the video descriptions and countless other administrative tasks that go on with running a YouTube channel of this size. Everybody that's a part of our community, whether you're blue or green or white in there, thank you for hanging out with us. To our supporters, to our members, a super shout out and thank you, because without them, videos like this just would not happen. You wouldn't know what you were missing. But because of our members and because of our the generosity of a few super members like our friend Buster, Oystein, Frankie B, Charlie Purdy, Mark Gaines, Luke Greenia, Oystein there in Norway, Paul Gray in Australia. The generosity of these individuals has made for a lot more projects and videos that if they didn't exist, you as viewers wouldn't know any better. So that's why it's important for me to acknowledge them and for you to know, without the generosity of these individuals helping us, we'd be here making commercials or being a puppet to a corporate overlord that tells us what we're allowed to say and not say, or we wouldn't be making videos at all. And so I really, really find it important to acknowledge all of these individuals that have done so much for this community, but it's also not to undermine those of you who are simply a part of the community and nothing more, because that level of support also matters, because without the community, who am I making these videos for? So thank you for being a part of this experimental thing we're doing here. And we look forward to hopefully you joining us again here tomorrow, 1 o'clock Phoenix time. Remember our friend Doug Betts, great YouTube channel if you want to see more live interaction from a technical standpoint. As a working technician, Doug Betts provides a very similar level of content. Our friend Planet Cryos has his own YouTube channel that he does edited, published videos, very similar in style. Be sure and check out his channel. Our friend Mike's Unboxing, Review, and How-To. If you're in the UK and you're looking for someone local that does this kind of content, you're going to love his channel. And then I'm forgetting somebody. I don't know who I'm forgetting. But at least that'll keep you busy between now and tomorrow anyway, where I hope you'll join us again. Until next time, bye for now.